Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Boncast. Today, we're going to be looking at the live developer Q&A by Lore and Mr. Hazzikostas, the game director for Battle of Azeroth. And today, I am joined by a panel of distinguished guests, returning with Qualia, with Wheegil, and with Barnabas. So let me go ahead and do a round of introductions so you know what we sound like. Qualia, sound off.
Hello, how's it going?
Wheegil, it's something funny.
Hey,
Yeah, boy.
it's Wheegil. We're super enthusiastic today.
And Barnabas, your first time on one of our podcasts.
Howdy.
Howdy.
How?
All right.
Say something else.
Nah, that's perfect.
It's more so that they know what you sound like. Now, okay, so I'm so hyped for this. Man. Options. Oh, there we go. Okay, you guys can full screen this if you go to little gear and go switch to full screen.
I'm gonna keep mine just sort of
Okay.
on the low so I can tap around.
This is perfect. Okay, so yeah, actually, before we get into the BFA Q&A, I'd like to get a little bit into the announcement that the pre-purchase is now live.
Speaking of which, we're looking at the pre-purchase ad right now, and I'm physically drooling thinking about making my High Mountain Druid.
Here we go.
So
Okay,
excited.
so I've got the page up now. Actually, let me put the screen share up. I can't believe I forgot to do that. Okay.
Unprofessional.
I know, right? There we go. The screen share is currently live.
All right.
Now
cool.
here is the splash page for the Battle of Azeroth pre-purchase on the shop, the Blizzard.shop, the us.shop.battle.net shop. Looking really nice. Now, what we're interested in is the deluxe edition and what we get for pre-ordering this thing. How many of you have already done so or are planning to? Because I know someone has.
I wasn't able to get in for the longest time just because the servers were overloaded a little bit, but I could pull it up now. Like I said, I don't know what's all in the deluxe or not, so I'm deciding whether I want it.
Dope. Well, here's what we got inside of it. Instead of having one mount, it's going to be a Horde mount and an Alliance mount. The Horde mount is going to get, what did they call it? The Gilded Ravissar. And the Alliance are going to get the Seabraid Stallion. Obviously, these are drawn from the Zandalari and the Kultiris nations that we're going to be visiting. I'm pretty dope. I don't typically use the mounts myself, but any of you guys planning on using either of these?
No.
No.
Wait, hold on. Let me see that horse again. Can you make that big?
Yeah, I'll try to. Oh, it's kind of funky looking, but that's about as big as I can get. I'm sure it's on MMO Champion.
It looks alright, but at the same time, I've never been big into buying mounts. So let's see here. Cost difference between like the regular version. Let's see if I can pull up the actual. So for $49.99 versus $69.99 US dollars. So
yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but
I mean, it's not that much more than a lot of the in-game shop mounts.
Well, what's nice is the more games that they add, the more stuff that they add with it too. Because then we have Overwatch goodies, Hearthstone goodies, and all these things that were it used to be just a mount and pet. But
we get a Hearthstone or Overwatch. What we get is a spray.
Mm-hmm. And a Tracer
icon. Basically,
Tracer does an animation where she throws down a Horde or Alliance banner, which is nice. Alliance themed lines, Horde and Alliance themed lines for Torbjorn. Emotes for Tracer, Anduin, Jaina, Sylvanas, and Sarfang sprays, and Kultiran and Zandalari player icons. So a bunch of Overwatch stuff. Wow. Other than that, we're also going to get a baby Tartolin pet, a Hearthstone card back, a StarCraft 2 spray, and a Heroes of the Storm mount, which looks dope. I'll be using that.
Yeah.
For some skins. Like
that may very well be my favorite Hearthstone card back ever made.
It's pretty dope.
It's a nice looking card back. I haven't played Hearthstone in so long.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I buy all this stuff with gold anyway, so the extra couple bucks isn't really going to hurt me too bad.
I'm probably going to just reserve a physical copy of the Deluxe Edition. I prefer to have the box. I didn't get one for the last expansion, even though I really liked it. I got one for Warlords of Draenor, but not for Legion for some reason. Yeah. So
the mounts look pretty good. The turtle's kind of cool, little Ninja Turtle looking guy.
This is, I think, the biggest takeaway though for Battle for Azeroth.
Heroes to get other skins.
This is the big news, I think. Early access to the allied races. Pre-purchase it to begin your quest to recruit 4 new playable races. Heroes of the Horde can enlist the High Mountain Tauren and the Nightborn. Champions of the Alliance can add the Lightforged Draenei and the Void Elves. So we're about to see them fucking... So it does confirm that the Zandalari and the Ironforged Dwarves are not going to be in until Battle for Azeroth actually ships. And then these I think are just... Well, there's a 110 boost also. That's nice, but these I don't think... Yeah, these... I'm pretty sure that Fabled Kingdoms, Plunder the Islands of the Great Sea, these things can't be pre-order bonuses.
Yeah,
Wait,
are these in the game right now then?
I don't think so. These I don't think are in the game.
Pre-order?
No, odds are you'll just
the
get the
first thing says
boosts and the allied
pre-purchase.
races.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that the mount and pet are currently in the in-game journals, but I'm not sure if you get them right away.
Right. Well, hey, I guess we can have someone confirm that later on, and I'm sure by tomorrow we'll know for sure.
I would, but it's almost 4 p.m. on patch day, and I still don't have any characters.
So
Blizzard.
you guys all have access to, Wheegil, Qualia, Barnabas. You're all on the InstaSync. You've all got the Watch Together link. So before we start the stream, also, let me line up this back. Yeah, sorry. Let's see. Qualia, if you can line us back up, I don't know what the timestamp was. But do you guys have any questions that you submitted yourselves to the Q&A that you wanted to see answered? Obviously, if you submitted them, you wanted to see them answered. But did anybody else submit a question?
No, I didn't even know there was a Q&A, so I'm real excited.
Yeah, I sent one in, but I didn't get. It just got ate up by the screen chat, I guess. But
what was your question?
I was just asking. With the addition of the upright orcs and then all sort of the new bells and whistles that some of the allied races are getting, if we could expect any sort of updates to cosmetic customization for the existing races.
That's kind of along the line of my own question. Qualia, did you submit a question to these guys?
Nah, it never crossed my mind to, actually, so...
It's all right. I've got a couple... My question for them was much along the same as yours, Barnabas. My question was, are the races that are similar to these new allied races expected to get any cosmetic updates in relation to it? Like, will Zandalari hairstyles be available to the trolls? Will Dark Iron hairstyles be available to the dwarves, etc.? I don't think we can expect Tauren to get antlers like the High Mountain Taurens. That doesn't make as much sense. So, because their hairstyles are probably tied around that geometry, I'm not holding my breath for new Tauren updates. But it seems completely reasonable that.
I don't think we'll be seeing like ember-flecked beards on Bronzebeard dwarves.
That's
I think
probably
Blizzard's going to try their best to keep those separate.
I don't think they'll be giving the tentacle hairs to the Blood Elves either.
Well, no, I didn't think. And for the Nightborn, I didn't think so either. But my question was specifically for the Dark Iron and the Trolls because I thought, they're pretty much the same.
Hey, I mean, I wouldn't complain.
Right.
I think the Trolls would have the most leeway, but in the end, I think Blizzard will make more money if people have to pay to change their hairstyle.
True. Well, hey, what if my Darkspear wants a bitch new hairstyle, man?
Well,
Anyway,
they're going to have to become a Zandalari.
Yeah, I guess so.
Easy as that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always up for
small
more customization.
race change fee.
A small race change fee. Well, if you did not submit a question, is there any particular topic you wanted these guys that you hope somebody else would ask for you or another?
Where are my goblins?
Oh God. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. Is this the expansion when the dance studio comes out?
Oh my goodness, the dance studio! It's like a joke.
I've been waiting since Wrath.
If Ghostcrawler were still here, we're still here. We'd still be hearing about that damn pony.
Yeah, I want to give Wheegil the undead male dance. It would be perfect.
I'm particularly interested in hearing a little bit more about the Warfronts and the Plundering Isles because if I return to Guild Lead again, my intention is to focus on those bits of combat and gameplay.
Man, we were shitting our pants when we were watching that during the
I know
announcement stream. We're just like, yes.
Anyway, I've got it full screen now. Are you guys ready to play?
I'm ready whenever you are, Chief.
All right. Do it up. All right. Refer to the shared screen to take a look-see. There's got to be a reason why this isn't playing. I got a full screen. Can someone verify that it's playing? Thank you, Qualia. Thank you.
Hold on. It's not playing for me either.
Oh,
Great
wait.
production here.
Maybe it won't let us. Not playing for me either. What the dick, dude? There we
broke
go.
it.
Nice. All right, now I'm gonna go full screen
oh,
again.
oh.
All right, starting.
You had one job.
Everyone's clicking
Hello,
on it, and now it's
everybody.
starting to stop it.
And welcome to our very
He stole
first
my bit.
ever
He
Battle
stole
for
my
Azeroth
intro.
live developer Q&A. My name is Josh Allen, aka Community Manager Lore, and I'm here once again with Game Director.
I love
Ian
that
Hazzikostas.
meme they
Ian,
got
thank
in the
you so much for
background
being
there.
here today to answer these questions.
Is it weird that I call Josh Allen Lore, but I only call Hazzikostas Mr. Hazzikostas?
I believe you're actually correct. Our second.
I know his actual name is
First
What is he, your
Watcher.
dad, Mr. Hazzikostas?
He's the game director. He deserves the the honorific.
Have just gone live.
Sir
in
Hazzikostas.
North America at this point, and working on
He's
getting
my
other
uncle.
regions.
I think that should be rolled out globally
Okay,
as we
cool.
speak. That process is ongoing.
Yep.
Oh, by the way,
obviously,
anytime you
maybe
guys want to
some
pause, go
issues
ahead and
just
just call it
didn't
out.
load on the
I'll
system,
pause on my
but
end. Let me test
we're
that I
super
can.
excited to get
It won't
this
pause for
content
me.
out there to get
Well,
people
Yeah, I'm
on
trying to
board
make
with
it
our
louder
basis.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the road begins.
Yeah,
That's-
super exciting stuff. Awesome to finally
It's on
have that out,
max.
in players' hands and able to go ahead and
Eh.
pre-purchase that.
So just a couple of details, I
Yep.
guess, related to that, just to get information
Oh,
out there.
wait.
I know there's a lot of
have an
questions
idea.
circulating. So the way it works, Allied Races, if you purchase Battle for Azeroth, the next time you log in, if you buy through the in-game shop, you might have to relog. But when you log in as a 110 character, you'll get pushed a quest that summons you to the embassy in either Stormwind or Orgrimmar, depending
My
on your
mastering
faction,
is not letting
where
me turn
you
it up a little bit.
learn about
Oh,
the
I know.
requirements for unlocking Allied Races.
I just turned
and if
mine
you
up in
meet
the volume
requirements
mixer.
for one of the two races available to you,
Do it up.
Same.
you'll
Okay.
be able to undertake the quest
That'll work
line
out.
right then and there to go ahead and unlock that allied race. One other thing, we know that with a 12 character limit per realm, we know that a lot of people have 12 characters, and while we were certainly raising that limit for Battle for Azeroth itself, we'd like to get that into your hands sooner, so we're actually working on a little change that's going to give everybody 4 extra characters
Yes.
per realm.
Oh, that's a good
Oh my
amount
God.
right there.
Associated with
4 extra
purchasing Battle for
characters is
Azeroth,
huge.
it's
I
gonna
can
be
restore my
global
goblin
changes.
now.
Everyone will have
I have had
character
full
slots,
character slots for
keep those,
years.
peeled for
Been going to the
other
delete
updates.
this guy, start a new guy.
Yeah.
As soon as that changes live.
And still,
I wonder if that
still a
means we'll get
maximum
one.
per
We'll get
account
2
of
more
50.
for the other
It's
for
just the per realm limit
the Zandalar
is
and the
going up
Dark
by 4
Iron.
slots, which is awesome.
Mm.
Nah, I think that was
So
like
we do
just trying to
actually have a real
fill
quick
in the
video
slot so
that
you could have like one of
goes
each.
into some
I don't
of the
think they'll be
details
giving
if
us
you
more and
are
more.
pre-purchasing and
Well,
you'd
if they
like
give us
to,
4 slots, it's 4
Yeah.
allied
unlocking
racers.
those
We'd have
allied
2
races.
left.
Got a real quick video we can show
Sure.
you guys. Just about a minute. We'll be right back.
Probably still gonna have to delete guys.
Oh, is this it? The Allied Races trailer?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
They're really
That's
gonna
pretty
do me
good.
like this when I can't even log into the game?
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess
wow.
most people that are watching this will be like,
They
I don't
really-
know when these are going to be released out. These
Look at
podcasts.
Bane! Oh my
Oh, that's
god.
good, huh?
He's
That's
so
good.
hot.
Oh my god. Okay, Illyria is
There's
being
everyone's
coy.
favorite allied race there, yeah.
She's being coy and she's not just
Honestly-
voided out.
I'm honestly happy that I can't go ahead and pre-order it at the moment because I'm
Can-
waiting on some cash.
can we pause it
because
real
everything's on fire
Yeah.
and everyone's like eating each other.
He's looking right at us. What's up,
Ex-
Weeds?
It's like,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
I
I'm on a
um
sparkly bird. chocobo.
I don't know how you guys feel, but I absolutely hate that mount.
We were
Just
talking a little bit about
the
that.
worst ever.
So, my question is, did this chocobo also delve into the void, and are they immune from the old god whispers or whatever it is?
That's what we.
Well,
Because they don't understand them. Is that how they resist the corruption? Because they don't understand whatever language they're speaking.
what really gets me is that the only thing I ever liked about the Blood Elf mount was their head. They had a really cool sort of curvy art style going on, their feathers going all over the place. And now he's got like a G-Eazy haircut, slick back, Doctor Doom helmet on. He just doesn't look like someone I'd want to have a beer with.
Nah.
That's
All right.
that's an interesting quality in your chocobo mounts, dude.
I just needed
Can I
to
have a
inject
beer
that
with
real
this
quick.
bird?
Feel free to hit play again.
An illusion, huh?
Okay.
Alright.
Okay.
From 20 to 110, that's not too bad.
Now they start at
I mean,
20.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to level down.
Right.
That is So I know I say it like always in these. I use the phrase "that's super exciting" about 400 times for every Q&A, but I feel like today's is super exciting because we have just unlocked.
It's your job to say it is,
Battle
bro.
for Azeroth pre-purchase.
It's pretty tight
I'm,
though.
I'm excited.
I'm
I'm
hyped.
personally excited to
Yeah,
get
it's
it.
exciting.
I watched this
Those
earlier, and
races,
I'll
so
still
that should be
never
super
stop
cool.
appreciating the
Excellent. Two of us.
Sylvanas
Only
Eon in the background.
What is that meme? What is that meme?
Well, as long as
Have you not been on our
What do you
slash WoW
mean? It
recently?
showed up.
Anyway.
Yeah,
During
it
the
showed up like a day after
BlizzCon.
the trailer was released.
Obviously, we had a
Yeah.
lot come in about Allied races.
And it just
leading
spread
up to
around.
today, which is convenient. So we'll start with this first one from Patavita, who asked,
Okay.
how will the Allied race
That's awesome, the
unlocks
way they're
work? Will
displaying
be
it
an
like
account-wide unlock?
Oh, and they're gonna have names on it too,
I'm exhausted
dude.
with the Nightfallen and would hate to grind out the rep on the Horde side as well.
Pavita is famous
I
now.
also hate.
Yes, that's a great question.
No, so yes, the Allied race unlocks are account wide. Once you've unlocked it, you can make it across your entire account.
Oh, that's
The
dope.
requirements are also account wide. So if you've played Alliance characters primarily thus far, you have an Alliance character that's finished the Insurrection campaign and is exalted with the Nightfallen. You need a Horde character to unlock the Nightfallen, but you will
Okay.
automatically have met those requirements.
Okay.
and Once you have a one.
It's pretty dope. So if you have been playing Horde all through Legion and you boost 110 and Alliance character,
Yeah,
you'll
that
be
makes
good
sense,
to
like,
go.
Given
That's
that there is,
good
like, a
because
little bit of
all of my
storyline
rep is on
about how
Wheegil.
the Nightfallen are actually coming to the Horde and so on. It would be weird.
I like
to be
how
like,
I
I'm
do
an
not
Alliance
have
character,
Exalted with
helping
Argutian
you
rep
join the enemy.
or
That
Argutian
would be
Reach
very
and the Light Forged, and I
Right.
will never get
Cool.
them because
Moving
I do
on,
not
next
want to play those
question
races.
From Trivia Cow. You talked about this in the
Oh,
intro, but just
I
to-
want to
I
be a
had
bearded
before
light
text.
giant.
I was just playing the game.
I missed the moo. I'm sorry. Moo.
How dare you?
Will we get our extra character
dare
slots
you.
with the
Moo.
preview?
Damn it, trivia
And if you're
cow.
saying we're actually just going to give everybody 4 extra character slots, regardless.
Exactly, and that will be
Dope.
happening
Well,
in
that's
the
awful
near
sweet of 'em.
next day or two.
Awesome.
Next day or two.
Moving right
Keep a
along. Next
lookout.
question from Extreme, who said, the addition of allied races provides great new customization options. However, with each race added, the pool of racial abilities to balance becomes larger. Does the team consider this a possible issue going forward?
Well, they've got to, right?
It's always something we're
Because
cognizant of when we're
the
expanding, player combat abilities.
Void
whether
Elves are
in any
considered
form,
so
whether it's
OP with their
skills,
spatial rift.
talents, modifications like
Mhm.
the artifact, legendaries.
Well,
all of the
there's
above,
that,
with
and
extra
do they still have the one where
knobs
it's
and
pretty
little
much
pieces in the
you're not
system that's
affected
charging to balance.
The
by
free
like
casting.
delay when
Yeah.
you're casting?
Racial
Yeah.
abilities for,
Ugh.
for the last couple of expansions, we tried to
We're kind of
focus
talking over his
heavily
answer,
on
but
the raw
that's kind of an
power
obvious
of the
answer, isn't it?
abilities,
Like, is this an issue for
Qualia
guys? Like,
reached
duh.
back
I
in
mean,
Secundaria with the original form of things like
Yeah.
berserking and blood fury
Mm.
with dot snapshotting and
Yeah.
and on the the history of the human racial on the PvP side of things.
Oh,
So I
that
think
human
at this
racial
point,
ruined many a
overall
BGs
power
for
level
old
of the
Ouija
racials
boy
is
over here.
that while there may be differences, they're much less likely to be a deciding factor. I think the big exception right now among the live racials is Blood Elf Arcane Torrent, which is just particularly, I would say, dominating in a lot of ways, frankly. In both
Case actually said something
PvP
about that.
and in coordinated
in-
dungeons.
Wait, are they getting rid of Arcane
Uh,
Torrent?
and
No, they're not getting
that's
rid of it.
something
Oh my
that's
god,
not,
no.
It's not about, is this worth 1%
There, Case goes talking about
I
how.
think they're just balancing it.
Thank you for pausing. For some reason, was that me who paused?
No, that was me.
Thank you for
Yeah, that's
pausing,
good.
Wheegil.
I got you.
Yeah, no. Casca says that with Arcane Torrent in particular, when they're doing really high end, what you would call professional mythic running, every player who could be a Blood Elf was a Blood Elf because
That's
Arcane Torrent is
disgusting.
broken.
Well, those interrupts are so important during those mythic runs.
Exactly right. Go ahead and hit playback, please.
Extra interrupts.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the silence is actually just
Oh
fundamentally.
my
Yeah,
god,
just
just
saying,
got the
yeah.
chips.
In a way that extra interrupts.
It's me.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the silence is actually just fundamentally transformative in a way that it enables tactics you otherwise wouldn't have. That's a racial we are likely taking a look at in 8.0 because it does need to change in some way.
Hungriest
But
panelist.
otherwise, we feel pretty confident about the level of power in the racials we're adding and going to continue to add going forward.
They've already reduced it
It's
by
more
1
about
second.
flavor, and yes, there will be cases here or there where having a specific race or being a specific race is advantageous, but it's not the worst thing in the world as long as everyone gets their moment in the spotlight. And I think we wouldn't want to pull back from adding new flavorful abilities out of just concern about balance issues.
All right, makes sense. Yeah, I know that a lot of the new allied race racials. That's a difficult thing to actually say. A lot of the racial
Allied
abilities from
racials.
the new allied
Get
races
it
I'm
together,
looking
Lore.
at and going, whoa, that seems crazy. Like I know I was looking at the Void Elf race.
unlocks are account wide. Once you've unlocked it, you can make.
Oh, what happened there?
Account. The requirements are also account.
Did it skip over?
So
Skip backward,
Skip
actually.
backward.
How did it do that?
Barnaby.
Oh, Barnabas.
You need
Get back to where we were.
I didn't touch it.
It said, well, that's fine.
Met those requirements.
I'm gonna
once you have a 1-2
Alright.
character, you can
Back.
be happening in the near future, hopefully within the next day or two.
Awesome.
Where were we
Moving
before?
right along. Next question from.
Within the next day or two.
Awesome.
God.
Race or being a specific race is advantageous.
There we go. That's
but
fine.
That's yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world as long as
All
everyone
right.
gets
From now on,
their-
only Wheegil can touch the buttons.
My bad.
Yeah, you're good. It was
we wouldn't want to pull back.
Next question from Extreme. Who
What?
Said, the addition of allied races
Extreme.
provides great new.
Oh,
customization
Barnabas's
options.
commands are,
However,
like,
with each race
coming
added,
in again.
the pool of racial.
Oh.
What's happening though? I'm literally in the shared
Oh, it
screen.
just
I'm not
moved
touching
again.
anything.
Yeah, it's probably just taking your commands that from a little bit ago and just adding them late.
Flavor and yes,
Sorry
there'll
about
be
that.
cases here or there where having a specific race or being a specific race is advantageous.
Probably trying to edit that bit out in
Topic race or
post.
being a specific race is advantageous.
There we go. It says you did it again.
Everyone gets their moment in the spot.
Okay, let's toss that on pause. here.
Stop.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever notice your main racials coming into play when you're just going through the content you indulge in?
For me, no.
No.
I play-
Very rarely.
I play warrior. We already have a fear break.
Right.
And our other racial that I think is really cool, which is touch the grave, is a very passive thing, and you only notice it when you go back over your combat logs. It procs a lot. It's like a, I don't know, maybe a once a minute proc, but it happens all the time. But it's such a passive thing. You don't really even need to
Okay.
consider it.
Because whenever I'm running Battlegrounds, I notice that they really make a difference in how I play. When I'm on my Orc Warrior, suddenly CC just doesn't touch me. I'm always running, always on the move. And if I'm on Wheegil, I want to be away from people, I can use my rocket jump toss on my Goblin Glider, and I just clear so much distance. They can't touch me.
It's
So I'm
probably
really curious as to how these new racials are going to screw me over.
But yeah, no doubt about the Arcane Torrent. I played Blood Elf for a long time, since BC, so first playing with a Paladin even, it's all melee, so it's you're going to be using it a lot.
Right. Yeah, that has a stupidly low range.
Mhm.
And I think
Thank you for playing
we
back.
wouldn't want to pull
Yeah.
back from adding new flavorful abilities out of just concern about balance issues.
All right, makes sense. Yeah, I know that a lot of the new allied race
Racials.
That's a difficult thing to actually say.
Come
A lot
on,
of the
Lore.
racial abilities from
You-
the new
you've
allied
been-
races,
you
people
had a
are looking at
second
going,
chance.
"Whoa, that seems crazy." Like I know I was looking at the Void Elf racial and being like, wait, so I can just send a thing in that direction and run over here and then teleport back over there. And that's
It
pretty
enables
cool.
the Void Elf racial is really interesting.
Wait.
Interesting,
It's-
that's one way to put it.
You have to see it and play around with it in
But
game.
That's a
It
great.
has
That's a
some
statement for the
fun
entirety of the
nuance
race,
to it,
dude.
but it's not-
Yeah, I know that a lot of allied racials.
Does it say Barnabas again?
Yep.
Actually say. A lot of the racial abilities of the new allied races, people have been looking at and going, "Whoa, that seems crazy." Like I know I was looking at the Void Elf racial
Well,
Okay.
and being like,
It's
"Wait, so I
not.
can
At least it's just a
send thing
stutter.
in that direction and
Yeah.
run over here and then
Might just
teleport
say
back
fuck
over
You
it.
see, I don't know what it is because I am literally petting my cat. I'm not even touching my keyboard until now.
It's
It's like, what?
you have to see it and play around with it in game.
I don't know.
It has some fun nuance.
I mean, my
to it.
connection is garbage, but I said that earlier, and they said that'd be
It's not a
fine.
direct
So
copy of
Yeah.
because the way it
I think
actually
we'll
works
be
is
fine.
When you trigger the button, when you trigger the ability
Someone's
the first
gonna
time,
ban
you
Barney.
send out this sort of little like void tracer.
Nah, we can
disc
edit.
that actually
Okay,
moves
so hold
the
on. It's
bottom
not what I
fast
thought it
as
was.
well
You
as
actually send the
run.
thing out to the.
Yeah, so
So, like, Demon Portal thing? Like the
So-
Warlock ability?
No,
yeah,
no.
is it just like a moving sort of Warlock
It's a-
recall?
It's a moving sort of. Are you guys familiar? Who's played Heroes of the Storm and knows how Li Ming plays?
No,
No.
not at all.
She has this.
well,
She
yeah.
has this. Go ahead.
I was saying there's similar abilities. Yeah, I haven't played Heroes of the Storm really, but I played Dota, and there's similar abilities on that where you have sort of a marker that moves or stays in a certain place, and that's sort of a recall point.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. It's a mobile one in this case, though.
hmm
Yeah. Looks like you send out a projectile. You can move while the projectile's moving, and at any point in time.
I
actually kind of like that.
I'm not looking forward to seeing that in PvP. That's
Yeah.
gonna ruin me.
What's
Oh,
Yeah, I know that a lot of the new
Gonna be some crazy jukes, though.
allied
I might play Void Elf just for the racial abilities.
difficult thing
don't
to
you
say.
dare.
A lot of the racial abilities from the new allied
least it
races,
skips back
people have been
again.
looking at going, whoa, that seems crazy. Like
Oh,
I was
no one
looking at
touch it.
the Void Elf racial and being like, wait, so I can just send a thing in that direction and run over here and then teleport.
Yeah,
back
when I
over
turned
there.
this on, I
That's
just
crazy.
because I watched it earlier, so I had literally just pulled up the live blog of all the notes, and I was just gonna go from that. I
You have
didn't
to
know we
see
were
it
watching
play
it
around
together.
with the game.
Yeah.
It has some fun nuance.
We have a
to
guest.
it, but
We have a
it's
guest on the
not
podcast, I
point
guess.
blank.
Arf,
Little
arf.
dog.
Copy of that.
Work.
'Cause the way it actually works is when you trigger the button, when you trigger the ability the first time, you
Okay.
send out
Well,
this
now we have
signal
a very
of the
in-depth
train.
knowledge of
It
this.
actually moves about as fast as you, a player, would run.
Okay.
And that just kind of
All
moves
right.
forward. When you push the
Okay.
button
That's
again,
less
within a
horrifying.
window of time, you port to that location.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just worried that we'd get like some arcane mage flying ball of death that you could just teleport to, and I got really worried.
Oh, no.
What were you trying to say there, Dayon?
I was to say, after 3 or 4 times having skipped over this part, we're about to be very intimately familiar with this particular racial.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So if you're in, a tight spot, you're standing in fire or something, it's not a teleport that's going to get you out of that instantly on demand. It requires pre-planning to use.
Okay.
So that makes it in many ways more limited than a lot of instant teleports that can be used reactively in an emergency. But it does enable some interesting sort of tactical gameplay when you can pre-plan if you know you want to, you're going to want to go somewhere a few seconds ahead of time. It's unique, flavorful, definitely powerful, but not overly.
He answers it like
Yeah,
a girl.
I'm just imagining in my head like
Shoulders go
some
up.
sort of like arena tournament environment where we're like freaking out because someone threw their Void Elf teleport off in a direction and the other team like split off so that one of them could be there and block them from wanting to teleport. I'm sorry, I'm kind of geeking out about that a little bit. Let's move on and answer more questions. This one comes from Morgan Rules 59 on Twitter, who asked, why did you decide to make the allied races rep and achievement locked?
Okay, pause.
A lot of people have been asking.
Okay, one thing on this because it's a whole fucking.
That dog pretty much is my feelings on the whole thing. Why did they decide? Why did they decide to make ally races rep and achievement locked? So that you have something to earn, dude.
I mean, yeah, but I can see why it's leaving a sour taste in some people's mouth when it's sort of become tradition that if you get races with an expansion, you try them out and have a good time.
The fair point.
I mean, it's kind of like, you look at this as like having that elite class, Death Knights weren't automatically, you don't get them off the bat,
Yeah, that's a good
Right.
point, too.
But you didn't have to grind your way through a reputation. You had to reach a level, which is significantly easier and less time consuming.
To be fair, most of the reputations required for these races are easily achievable just by playing through the content as you have to level anyway.
Incorrect.
doing
I
basic
reached level
emissary
110. I don't have Exalted with anyone.
Then what did you do?
I PvP.
Oh God!
I'm part of the player
So you
base who's just like stepped
I didn't
on
play
because
the
we don't
content.
grind rep.
Please give me the content unlocks.
No, I played the content I wanted to play.
Hey, if they led like another pathway, being like, "Hey, you got to kill this many of this ally to gain rep with this other race," let's do that.
If I got rep for killing Void Elves, I'd be so happy.
Well, I want to bring that Ashran title back, for the new allied races, where it'd be like Void Elf Slayer.
Well, here's a thought. If you wanted to level up if you want to level up a Goblin or a Worgen now, you have to go through this, level up experience before you can actually start doing things in the overworld. You can't just roll the thing and then go to Orgrimmar straight away. You have to get past that experience.
You gotta go through that.
Right. But you're not going to be grinding the Goblin starting zone for weeks on end.
That's fair. But
you're going to run through that in a day. Maybe 2 days if you're slow and having a good time.
I like the idea, though, that you have to be a proven, esteemed individual in order to recruit the races. That's part of the experience.
Well, that's fair. But do we still have that that gateway where you have to have a 110 on that realm as well? Because that's just another one.
Actually, they said no. It's because it's account-wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another thing I think, too, is, you can say, well, I didn't do that content. I wanted to do PvP the whole time. Obviously, it would be slower, but there are other pathways with the mission table, for instance, because people were talking about the Argosian Reach and
right.
Light reps, and Yeah, just by doing token quests on the mission table and then, casually doing emissary quests, I had those maxed out like a couple weeks into the patch.
Yeah, the thing with that is if you just run BGs and arenas all day, good luck getting enough resources to run a mission.
Here's the other thing, though. These expansions, they always create them not just to please not just to please the players who are currently around. They're also marketing these for new players to come in. It's why we got the thing like, hey man, I know that we've got 100 levels, but if you sign up, now you can boost whatever character you want and get right into the gameplay. That was their way of courting people who thought that all these expansions would be too much to work through. So they do want new players too. And that's going to be a little prohibitive for new players. Like, oh, I have to go back through Legion, but I bought this to play BFA. That's a thought.
Well, they can always make a. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm looking at Wowhead here, and
Yeah,
it still
me
says that you need to have a 110 on that server to make an allied race,
No, that's accurate.
that's just another gateway.
There-
It's brutal.
There's another type of player you guys haven't mentioned yet, and that's me. I'm not going to roll any of these allied races. I don't care what the requirements are. I'm playing an undead warrior and
Sure. And that's
Well,
entirely
see,
fair.
I'm doing the same thing. It's just I'm not, because I tend to main one thing and then focus in on it until however long it takes me to move on to my next thing, and I don't play alts almost at all.
Yeah.
That said, the requirements again to me do not seem that prohibitive at all, just because it's been so passively achieved. Just the even small amount of time that I've been able to play the game lately.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a very niche way of playing the game. I exclusively just RP, play the auction house, and PvP. So I never have any of these reps unlocked or any of these achievements.
I want to say one last thing, and then we'll move on, because we're spending a lot of time on just this one question. Somebody tried to compare this requirement to the loot box fiasco that you've seen with like Star Wars 2, Battlefront 2, and Shadow of Mordor, where you can't. The idea is you're supposed to be given everything for the price of admission, which is paying for the game, and you shouldn't have to work towards. You are, but they're saying you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to work towards it. You shouldn't have to do more stuff within the game. If you buy Battle for Azeroth, you should get Void Elves. Is basically the argument.
Sounds like it was written by a Polygon journalist or something.
It was a
Cut skip button,
It was
like if you buy a single player game, you should have the ending right away.
Pretty much. I guess that's their rationale. But
like I said, I'm not against having to work for these races. I'm just against gating it so heavily in favor of one play style. Yeah. Having options would be nice. Like if I had to kill 10,000 players, that's a lot, but I'd do it.
That is a lot.
I'd have more fun than grinding rep.
Oh man, that'd be great. He's like, well, we don't have a diplomat to send you, but we've got this battlefield slayer. He's killed 10,000 guys. Don't let his short stature, belie his great might.
Who are you calling short?
All right,
and I think some of it too might just be a pride thing on behalf of the devs, where they want people to play through what they spent time making.
That's also fair. Yeah.
Of course. Now let's hear what their actual answer is.
Races. I think these aren't long-standing members of the Alliance of the Horde. We wanted to introduce a wider variety of new races. And as we talked about at BlizzCon, this was sort of our spin on the oft-requested sub-races feature that players have been talking about for a long time.
Yeah.
Ooh, quick pause on that.
Explaining.
Yeah, that's something Blizzard always does. Whenever someone requests features, they're interested, but they want to put their spin on it. Their answer to player houses was garrisons, and I guess I didn't like that very much.
No. Well, the problem with garrisons was that when people want player houses, they want it to be able to represent their character. Right. And that was a very static sort of fantasy of this war hero.
If you're a goblin, you get an orc garrison. If you're
I had to go through so much
you
work.
get a human garrison. If you're a night elf,
fair.
you get an orc garrison.
I spent so many days trying to get goblin guards in my garrison.
We could go down that rabbit hole for a whole other podcast, but I just wanted to touch on that. Blizzard's philosophy is they want to do a certain feature in Blizzard style. All right, go ahead and play.
They do. Well, I'm
finished.
That's all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, Blizzard can't just expect everyone to be happy with what they put out all the time.
You're right.
And they should be used to it by now.
Right.
People just getting
and in the case of housing in particular, especially when the other games on the market have done it so amazingly well and in depth comparatively, you can kind of understand a feature that seems to be baseline in a lot of other MMOs that people have asked for since vanilla, why it would be.
Oh man, as much as
Something
I'd
like
love
Garrison's
to,
wouldn't be adequate.
as much as I would love to counter that, I'm going to instead tell Wheegil hit that play button.
Okay, hold on. I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
One of the biggest drawing points of WoW is that sense of this is my character. This is who I am in this world, right?
Ooh,
Like,
hold on to
I-
that.
Right?
Go ahead and
Do you-
expound
do you-
on that, but we're
Okay.
gonna touch on that in greater detail later.
All right. So yeah, it's about who you are, and so like the player housing thing that didn't capture that. But in this expansion, Blizzard seems to be leaning a little more towards let's let players express themselves, give them all these
Yeah.
new races to play with, all this new stuff. I'm gonna hit play.
Hit play.
Well, yeah, why did the Nightborn join the Horde? A lot of Alliance players are, rightly outraged, saying the Nightborn should have joined us.
Salty is the right word, I think.
And we want to take everyone through the story and through the experience. Of
Outrage
bringing
sounds
this
more
faction
dignified.
Into your race, bring this race into your
I
faction.
am
rather.
outraged at this
And
decision.
The form that takes, the best way of measuring that in our game is things like reputation or achievements, right? The achievement is you
Ooh.
complete the entire quest line that tells the story of the Nightborn insurrection, or the story of you uniting the High Mountain tribes and fighting off the Drogbar. And then reputation is kind of a complement to that. It also, it makes it more likely that you will have spent a good amount of time working with, helping, understanding this culture before you bring them into your faction, potentially play as well.
Void Elves have a culture, okay.
You don't get an understanding of culture by grinding world quests.
That's a fair point. I kind of.
I've been desperately trying to get the Nightfallen reputation because I really want to make a Nightborn.
That's a.
And
But that's your way of playing through it also. Like, you haven't played the campaign, you admit.
No, I'm playing the campaign,
Yeah.
and I
Oh, you
reached the
are?
point where you have to reach Exalted to finish.
Okay, yeah, so there is the grind at the end.
Yeah.
That's true.
Immediately after a quest where you have to reach a Reverend to finish. It's just...
Oh, I'll give you that. Blizzard should get rid of that rep grind at the end there, because it's not going to add content to the game. Before I get it, they need it for time gating content.
Right.
You need that block in there, but if you just need to do the storyline, yeah, do that, man. Just get rid of that rep grind near the end.
It's left a terribly sour taste for that whole zone in my mouth.
I say play, but I'm also going
I
to
can get
step
on
in
board
and
with
say
that.
that's the last time that we're going to pause for this question. We're already 37 minutes in. Hit that play button. Let's go.
As the requirements are something we're likely going to look back at as time goes on. We'll see how much sense it makes as we get into later expansions and have more and more of these allied races. But in the space
more
of
and more.
Legion right
We're on the
now,
way. You heard
the
it
4
here.
allied races that are available, these requirements more or less boil down to play the content, play the game associated with these zones, with these races.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think it's a good point to consider as well with the allied races, just that there is a sort of story that leads up to them joining a particular faction, and now that it's in players' hands, hopefully they'll have a chance to see that a little bit more.
And in a lot of ways, I mean, with other races, we gave you, that story was sort of front-loaded, and you played through it from 1 to 10 in the Goblin starting experience or what have you.
Yeah.
Allied races instead start at 20. So I think instead of playing through, a very low-level experience with 1 or 2 buttons on your bar, you're playing through more of the content on the other end of things at your max level, and then jumping into the action a bit later on.
That makes sense. Next question here from Gwanin, who asked, will we be allowed to access Dark Iron Dwarves and Zandalari Trolls before the release of BFA, or will this be
I'm guessing
after
no.
the expansion is out?
No need to pause on that. I think it's
No,
no.
you need a reason.
Oh, yeah.
You need a reason to go to Zandalar.
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
Exactly.
Hit that play button. Let's see what they say.
So I think the pre-release allied races are the 4 that were just made available today for the ones
Confirmed.
that are associated with Legion. Once Battle for Azeroth releases, after you're leveling to 120, going to the new lands, you will be able to begin working on the requirements to unlock future allied races such as the Dark Iron Dwarves or the orcs from Draenor that we've hinted at, and then things like Trolls. Again, that's going to be part of.
I beg your pardon.
Wait, repeat that? I was watching my microphone to make sure I was getting recorded. What did he say?
He said
He was
allied
hinted at.
races like the Dark Iron Dwarves or the orcs from Draenor that have been
No!
hinted at.
No!
Oh, Dayon. Oh,
God, no!
Dayon.
Please no! Mr. Hazzikostas,
Okay.
listen to us!
I was
Okay,
wondering why
okay.
that one armor set was data mine.
No, Mr.
Here's the
Hazzikostas,
thing.
please!
You know they're going to. I mean, a lot of people that roleplay will probably just say they're original normal universe brown orcs.
Right.
That said, I had talked to a friend about this earlier. and we kind of get the feeling that they're going to have alternate universe Grom be their racial leader. And
No!
So
Just
Oh.
no!
Oh wow.
He's like war criminal. I don't care if he helped us in the end. He needs to be tried. He doesn't have to just say, "Oh wow, I guess I wasn't the real bad guy after all." Look at him. That's A-logging,
Oh.
dude. No.
That being said,
just wait till they do some sort of butt pull and like make Sylvanas like super sympathetic all of a sudden.
Oh
again.
my god! No. There are three groups of people. There are three groups of people here. There's people who are going to know the difference between the Wad orcs and the Magar orcs, and will want to be Magar. Then there are people who don't care what the story says. They're just going to roleplay one way or the other. And then there's the group who would prefer the Warlords of Draenor orcs. I'm telling you, they're the smallest group. They're smaller than the roleplayers who would pretend otherwise.
it seems
Iron
silly.
Horde fans.
It seems really silly that they
didn't
go
realize
back to
that
an expansion
Draenor
that was
was,
almost universally hated.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I didn't realize it was canon. I mean, I realized Gul'dan was from that one, but space stuff,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it's still considered canon, and because they're all butthurt they're also butthurt that we're fighting the Legion, and there's Irel saying, "Hey, if you ever need us, you can always come back to find us," and we never go back there, and people are like, "Well, what the hell? We're fighting the Legion, don't we kind of want to go back?" And it's like, no, we don't care about that expansion enough to go back there. So then you have to
let's just
explain what
let it die.
Irel's gonna sit there with you're like. He's gonna be sitting there at 3 a.m. Like when you.
I waited for you, Fry.
She's gonna be there with her arms crossed, one leg over the other, with a wine bottle and an indignant look on her face, saying, "Well, where were you? It's 4 a.m. Were you out again? Fighting Legion without me? Stupid."
See, there are perfectly good orcs to take out of even just Azeroth to bring into the Horde. There's Dragon Maw up in here.
Yeah,
little
that'd be
Black
dope.
Rock action. What's going on?
But then there are people who like certain clans too that are gonna
Yeah.
want to play. I want to play as a Shattered Hand white-skinned orc. I want to play as an ashen-skinned, Blackrock mountain orc. If they're gonna pull this United Clans nonsense, then they're gonna have like this. They'll have
if
to.
they brought the.
They'll have to cater.
Sorry.
I imagine what they do is just have the allied race be Draenor orc, and then within the customization options, be like, okay, I'm a Shattered Hand. Ooh.
Oh my god, I'm upset.
Needless to say, I am not excited.
Just Magar orcs. I actually have that in one of my questions for Mr. Hazzikostas was, how can we reach you to convince you that we do not want the Draenor orcs, we want the Magar? What can we do? How can we reach out to you?
I'm just trying to think of what would be going through the head of people who are excited for this right now.
My favorite expansion was what? I don't.
What horrible
Although-
monsters are those people?
Orcs will potentially give
War
us a
criminals.
gorgeous heritage set.
That's a good set
Are
though.
they in ISIS?
Oh my
Is that who
god.
likes WAD?
Okay, we're going back in, boys.
Thank
All
you.
right, let's get this going.
Unfolds down the line.
Oh my.
Gaining the Zandalari as allies is a huge part of the storyline of Battle for Azeroth. Our whole point in going to Zandalar is to enlist their aid, but we're going to have to solve a lot of their problems before we get to that point. That's the story we're telling here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's similar to how the current, now they're current,
Yeah.
allied races that are available. A lot of what's going on there is you just sort of going, hey, yo, we've been helping you out with all of your problems for a long period of time. You should join us. It would be weird to, within the first few hours of questing in Zandalar, just showing up and be like, hey, guys, so y'all want to join the Horde? It's great.
I think if you imagine, imagine if allied races had existed in Legion as a feature from the start. High Mountain and Nightborn probably would have had similar requirements, would have played out in very much the same way, right? You would have leveled up through Legion, gotten to know these new cultures, worked with them, solved their problems over the course of, a bunch of story content, and then at the end of that journey, been able to unlock them. And so that's kind of the similar approach that we'll take with new cultures that you're meeting.
So that's a hint right there.
It's a big commitment joining the Alliance.
What's that?
So.
Basically saying, once you progress with these different factions, you'll probably be unlocking them as allied races.
Oh, I see. So look out for whatever reputations we might have going through BFA. They might become next expansion's allied race. Volpera are on the way.
Volpera?
I know that it's probably not going to happen, but I want to be a turtle man.
Oh,
That'd
man.
be dope. I want to be a
That'd be cool.
Tortolan.
Yeah, but their armor would be so tricky to get right.
Yeah.
Just give them hats.
Yeah, hats
Just
and
have,
then
like,
the show
the-
always on.
All the other armor just, shows up as their default skin, and then they can have a helmet that just pops up over their head.
Nothing goes. Just the turtle shell goes over everything.
There
That'd be dope.
was one instance I saw during the data mining. I don't mean to tangent too much, but
Oh, you're good.
it was a Tortolon who looked as if he was wearing modular armor pieces. Like he had on
Really?
shoulder pads, a helmet, and all that.
Ooh.
The only thing that threw me off is that his chest piece wrapped all the way around his shell.
Around the shell.
And looked like, like it was
Hot
super
garbage.
artistically placed. No, it looked great.
Was it good?
Well, how
Oh.
did turtles put shirts on? I mean, you'd have
It
to,
was just
right?
like a war harness, right?
Oh,
Like
I
he
see.
wasn't wearing an actual top, just some leather strap.
Okay.
So, gotta
Nope.
make sure to respect that.
We're gonna have one of the dogs wear pants.
All right, here's a question that I know a lot of people are asking, because it's about the only thing we see in Twitch chat.
I was about to say, I can't see the Twitch chat window from right here, right now, but I'm sure solo queue is being spammed and
Yeah.
has been for the last.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Question here from Fix and also apparently literally everyone else. Is
Mhm.
there any chance that we might see 3v3 or RBG
Ooh.
solo queue?
Yes.
In Battle For
Dope. That'd be tight.
Honestly, I would say unlikely.
Oh.
Here's
No.
A full gamut of
Come on.
emotions with Wheegil over here.
I want to do rated PvP more so bad, but finding people to play with sucks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Even when I was on a
why?
PvP server, that was like the hardest thing.
I
was
just
finding
want to
people
know
to play
what is
with
their
all the time.
reasoning. What is their reason for saying no to that?
Well, let's hear.
What
it.
do they lose by having solo queue?
Let's listen in.
I'm fuming over it.
First off, I think we view the pre-made experience as one of the major differentiators between ranked rated PvP and solo random queue, random battlegrounds, skirmish arena. There's to a large extent, if you could just solo queue, yes, there might be more involved matchmaking, but it very much blurs the distinctions between those two things. But I think the more important reason, and I know
I'm a special club.
Yeah,
look at
I can
other
kind of understand that.
games with PvP components. Look at other genres. Look at MOBAs out there across the board. Look at Overwatch. All of these have successful solo-rated queue systems. Why doesn't that work for World of Warcraft? I think probably the biggest difference, honestly, is that in all of those other systems, where composition matters, team composition matters, cooperation matters, there's much more flexibility after the team is formed to change your composition.
That's
If you're playing
true
MOBA,
too.
you go through, a pick ban phase before you actually jump into the game. In Overwatch, of course, you can change your composition on the fly. It's
Not
a core
everyone
part of
has
the
a whole
game.
gamut of characters they can
But
swap in
when
and
it's
out at will.
MMORPG, and you're not queuing as you, the human being behind the keyboard. You are
Yeah.
a Blood Elf mage or a Dwarf Paladin or whatever. That is your character. That's not flexible. And
Oh,
composition
that
is
actually makes a
very
lot of
important.
sense.
And it's not just which.
Does that satisfy?
No.
Well, actually, I was actually a YouTuber that I follow was going on about this for. Okay, here's something crazy going on in Overwatch. There are players who are being banned for just sticking to just one hero. I think somebody was banned for playing 2 Arbjorn on attack for.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
about
they're
that.
being banned for one tricking.
Yeah, pretty much.
Banned for playing the game how they want to.
Which is crazy. But the guy who was ranting about that suggested that why don't you just queue up for the role that you want to play, and you can join groups that are missing that role. I mean, you could probably do something similar to that. Like,
Oh, so it'd be like sign up as support and find a group that's needs a support.
yeah, or
slot.
range DPS or melee DPS or a tank. You could probably do something
that
similar
might
like
work.
that.
Well, the thing that really gets me is all these games that they mention. The competitive, the ranked community is always split right down the middle, where you see all the pre-mates up at the top and all of the solos down at the bottom, with, the odd fringe exceptions of these just god-tier players. But it's not something you'll ever be able to get around.
How far through this video are we?
Not even halfway.
Oh my god, we
It's
gotta pick up.
exceptionally bad with RPGs.
Aren't, but also
Exceptionally
in
bad
terms
in
of the
RPGs.
split.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure, but I'm not happy with them.
so your tactics that you develop and how you cooperate and how you play as a certain comp or against other comps. And so I don't think it's realistic for us to offer a good matchmaking experience that also gives you a reasonable composition against fairly matched opponents and reasonable queue times. I don't think that we could.
Just one quick thing.
Ah.
So you can do solo queue for dungeons because it's a very fixed sort of setup. You have your 3 DPS, your tank, and your healer.
Yeah.
Blizzard. Maybe if you finally made it so that battleground teams weren't horribly imbalanced and one team had 5 healers and the other had none.
I
You
see
could do
what you're
solo queue.
doing. I see what you're going with that. Maybe.
Fix your damn matchmaking. Blizzard.
Maybe.
Wouldn't that just like murder queue times though, and you'd have people mad for a different reason?
I mean,
good point.
Probably.
Just take
I don't
the
see
Ash.
anything making better.
I think they'd rather be.
yeah.
I think they'd rather have people mad at them about not having a solo queue than people mad at them for queues that take forever.
Yeah, well, we currently have that Ashran mercenary system where you can queue for the opposite side. The only problem is you have to go find an NPC in like the underbelly or Ashran to activate it. If you could just activate that from the PvP window and then queue up, it'd be like, boom.
That's dope.
Would produce a frustrating experience in very different ways. I think there's also...
It's already a frustrating experience.
On a regular basis, getting to know arena partners or RBG partners, you improve, you cooperate, and that there's a lot of depth to the gameplay there, also on a social level. So I think the approach we'd like to take is to make it easier, more accessible to get into these formats. And there's a couple of avenues we can approach there. On the RBG side, we know that 10v10 is getting 10 people together, keeping 10 people together, particularly with some of the comp goals that you have in putting together an RBG team. That can be very daunting. We've tried out some 6v6 formats, through a brawl. I feel like that has been promising, and that's something I think we're considering moving the RBG format to 6v6 for Battle for Azeroth, which should lower the barrier to entry significantly just in terms of the logistics of assembling and coordinating and maintaining a group of that size. And separately, we'd like to add and improve social tools to make it easier to find arena partners and RBG partners. I think our community system actually has a lot of potential on this front. Rather than just relying on the pre-made group finder, I think I would hope that we will see cross-server communities forming that are, hey, this is a 1600 to 1800 arena community of people who are just let each other know when they're queuing, looking for more, get to know some familiar faces in there. You can, have scheduled times when most people are going to be around if you're trying to do RPGs, whatever else, and make it easier to get those matches made. It's something where obviously this isn't an issue we consider closed. We're going to keep looking at it, keep working on it. But I think those are the approaches and those are the steps we're taking in Battle for Azeroth. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean,
I bet a solo queue button would make it easier to get those matches made.
It should be clear that solo queue is something we talk about a lot.
It's something where obviously this isn't an issue we consider closed. We're going to keep looking at it, keep working on it.
Oh, I skipped again.
Those are the approaches and those are the steps we're taking in Battle for
They Barnabas again.
We'll see where that goes.
Barnabas left
it does.
Stream. Wait, always back in. Never mind.
Is something we talk about a lot. I'm pretty sure I have this conversation at least once a week with somebody on the dev team.
Okay, I left the stream, so y'all are just gonna have to fill me in on what's going on because I think it's my garbage connection keeps like rubber banding it backwards.
It might be. Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, granted, I watched this earlier when it was actually live, so for the most part, I kind of know what they're talking about.
Oh, I see.
We'll start filling you in once we reach the next question.
Yeah,
this one's lasting a while.
I'll read off the questions.
For a long time, I'm trying to figure out a way to make it work for World of Warcraft. But sort of the problem we run into is as you sort of go through the imagining how this actually works in function, you quickly get into a state where you see, okay, well, as a Death Knight, for example, like you have fairly limited what players would call viable comps, and what realistically are probably viable comps as well. And so there's certain, okay, I'm a Death Knight, and so I never want to play with a Discipline Priest, for example. And maybe that's your personal choice or whatever. And so now it's like, okay, well, now you don't queue this person with a Discipline Priest, but
very specific
the only
request.
Who's
got a request
don't
like
play
that?
with a Resto Druid or a Resto Shaman. So now there's only like two other, and you get to a point where
What the hell? Where are these? People actually
with
have
queue times
parameters like that they expect to be met.
This would quickly get into a point where like, okay,
when they're running like very serious rated PvP, yeah, you have the comps that you really want to just hit on the head. But
whatever.
I mean, I was crushing rated 2s with a Arms Warrior and a Blood DK. Like, it really doesn't matter in the lower tier. And that's what this solo queue would help out with. Because the upper tier, they already have groups. They don't need our help.
That's fair. I hit that play button again.
solo queue some arena. I'm 2.2k. My queue time is 30 minutes or longer, and that would be really bad.
Okay,
so
really?
again, it's something
Better
that we
than me.
really want to be able to figure out how to make.
Nah,
work,
he's
but
lying.
As of yet, we don't have support for it.
If he was 2.2k, he'd give us
Making
solo
sure
queue.
I'm not making up too much off the top of my head right there. All right. Question here from Jiraiya.
Now a
This is
blood
a
feud.
question that I answer. Hooray! I get to answer one. Who asked any news about the arena spectator mode? The
Any
reason I
news
have
about
this
the arena spectator mode?
one
I'd be
in
down
here
for
is
that.
because we see it asked a lot, and clearly we've done a very bad job of communicating this because it's been in the game since 7.2.5. So basically,
Oops.
the way it works is you use the there's a slash command /invite spectator match.
What?
So you can look that up. You can just Google search it.
I'll write
There's
that
a
down.
couple of guides out there that you can check it out.
Oh my goodness.
We need to find a better way to communicate this ourselves rather than
So it's a hidden command line.
go
Yeah.
to Google and search for this so that someone else can tell you how to do it is not the most ideal way for you to get that information.
That's-
But it is out there if you use the invite spectator match command. I believe there's a couple of add-ons that help automate that process for you as well. It just comes up.
Add-ons
It's
out
just-
there.
it's
Use our
automatically there, and
add-ons,
you're able
not
to
our
go in there and
actual
use
game.
The same arena spectator interface that we use at like BlizzCon and tournaments and so on.
Yeah, and I
So-
think
Oh, well.
it's largely rolled out. I mean, it in its current form, it's definitely more of a power user tool.
Yeah,
Right? It's
for
definitely there to help with community-run tournaments, things along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's there and it's something we can build upon going forward.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so if you are
fair
somebody
enough.
who's
Okay.
considering running a tournament, even if it's just a tournament for a few of your guildmates or whatever, it is there available for you to use. Not
That's
the
dope
greatest
though.
thing
Guild
for
run
use
tournaments.
for
Hell
just-
yeah, man.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair approach to it. It's not a tool that's going to be used by anyone. You don't really need to shove it down people's throats as like,
no.
hey, try out our new spectator mode
Well,
in Arena.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude, you don't
we'll
have
watch your
to
arena matches because of how you have to use it. but
pause every
it's
time we
fair
have
by
something to
design
say.
as well.
Oh no, I
Question
know.
here from
I get
Blade
tripped up
Warden,
when other people
who
are talking.
asked,
Oh, I hear you.
Glade Warden.
Oh, Glade! Hey! It's our girl
Oh,
Glade!
sweet.
Any plans? Oh, hold up. Pause that. Pause that. Oh, it's our girl Glade! Yeah, boy! He
Glade
got a
suck.
question in! What's her question? Any plans to tweak the prestige system? Concept is great. As it stands now, it's not nearly rewarding enough for how long the grind is. That's fair. And I want to point
Before
out...
we get into that,
the reason-
have any of you prestiged?
No. But before we get into that, I want to say the reason we're so hyped is because Glade Warden is another one of our guild members.
Oh yeah, she's pretty cool. She's a good time.
She's dope. I love Glade. I miss her.
But yeah, have any of you guys prestiged?
I don't remember because I haven't PvP'd
No.
in so
Yeah.
long.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't. I did not get the dinner with Sylvie.
Which one? I'm working on 3 or 4 right now.
3, okay. I've only done Prestige 1, but I've done it on 2 characters now. The only real issue I have with the Prestige system is one thing needs to change. Either you need to lose all your abilities after you Prestige, or just have them all to begin with.
My
I don't
thing is-
like how it doesn't feel like you're actually earning anything in
They-
PvP anymore.
If I remember correctly, they actually addressed that in this question or one of the ones down the line.
All right.
Oh, let's hit
why
that
don't we
play
sneak ahead?
button.
So yeah, we've been talking a lot about what we think about Prestige and how to carry the Prestige system forward beyond Legion. I think the answer isn't to keep adding, dozens of new tiers with new mounts and cosmetic rewards at each of them, such that when somebody comes to the game a few years from now, they're looking at this ridiculous road ahead of them and like, wait, there's like 80 prestige levels for me to get if I want to unlock all these rewards.
Yeah.
At the same time, we also don't want to undermine the time people have put into the system over the course of Legion. People have worked, as you note, very hard and spent a lot of time playing Battlegrounds and PvP in general to earn the rewards that are available. So I think our current thoughts, and this is still early, subject to change for sure, is to keep the prestige system, to keep the prestige ranks that we have from Legion largely as they stand with the rewards that they have, to continue adding new ranks beyond that in Battle for Azeroth and beyond, but to have those ranks, as you go further, largely just give you, similar to sort of the Overwatch structure, give you a box or some repeatable reward at the end that has, whether it's currency,
Blue
whether
boxes
it's,
in WoW
figure out
confirmed.
exactly what makes sense to go in it. And your prestige level just
Oh
becomes
my
a
goodness.
measure of how much you've PvP'd, how much you've invested into the system, how experienced you are overall. And there may be, some titles or some other benchmarks along the way. that you
Ooh,
special
title's always
recognition
good.
to. But again, it's very similar to that Overwatch sense on what your level means in Overwatch and other games with similar systems. That's not to say we're not going to keep awarding, new mounts and titles and everything else that we do through PvP, but we don't feel that the right way is to just add, an endless system there that's going to always expand and become completely unapproachable to anyone.
So
Funny them saying that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I entirely get what he's getting at there as far as the whole box system is concerned. Does anyone want to try and break that down for me?
I don't even want to begin doing that right now. It seems exhaustive.
Oh, no?
No,
So
no.
what is he saying, that you just get a box at the end of a season that has
He's-
stuff in it for you?
He's saying that that's certainly an avenue that they're considering because, the idea that Prestige is meant to be similar to your level in Overwatch or Heroes of the Storm, where it reflects how much time you spent into the thing. So that when you enter the, like when I play Heroes of the Storm, if I see someone I very rarely see someone who's like level 900, but when I do, I'm like, oh man, he's either going to be really good or I've just played the game for a long time to be bad.
Right.
It's a little bit of a marker, but
Okay.
I don't know if they do loot boxes, they're gonna have to figure out what to populate those loot boxes with, and that could anger people who don't do PvP if it's nice stuff. But the new titles sound fun. I'm always down for new titles.
Well, I think you'll anger people a lot less if you just give us something useful rather than something super flashy.
That's true. Yeah.
Like whatever the resource is. Like, I haven't got a damn single order hall resource from PvP.
There's no way to get
expansion. No, I can't do order hall missions because I don't want to be in the world.
That'd be dope. But hit that play
Yeah, I
button.
mean, I got.
for the first time.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say,
makes a lot of
Qualia?
sense. I know
I
that.
don't
No,
want-
that's fine. I was just saying I don't do world quests anymore.
Oh, yeah,
neither
do I.
I
haven't even been played in a little bit.
So
I do for the
fun to have
chance
that
at
sort of
loot.
constant progression. So any sort of improvements there.
Yeah,
sounds
exactly.
Awesome.
I love you, Glade.
I missed
Shout
the
out.
opportunity there. I could have done it.
Shout out to
I was
Glade.
playing my shaman the other day, sort of play into the meme.
But you missed the opportunity, so
I
it's
missed
too late.
it. Yeah. But I was playing my shaman the other day, and I
No,
missed
that
a
you-
different opportunity. So that was whatever. Anyway,
All right, come on,
I'm
Laura.
trying to meme too hard. Question here from
Shitposting galore.
YT, who asked,
He's trying real
will
hard.
there be more updates to honor talents in BFA? Feels like there are a lot of dead talents that just don't
Oh,
get picked.
pause this real
unless
quick.
you are- I forgot.
Yeah,
the-
easy.
My
This is, I think, what they're like.
There will be more updates to honor talents in BFA. It feels like there are a lot of dead talents. Do you still need me to read these questions off?
Just go for it anyway.
Okay.
Will there be more honor talent? There are dead talents that don't seem to be picked enough. What do you think's going to happen?
My hope.
I mean,
my hope, and the reason I wanted to expound on this is I absolutely dislike the fact that there are certain talents that are locked to the overworld in in the honor talents, like especially because some of those talents were made up of things that were previously baseline to me beforehand. Like before Legion, I had access to Spell Reflect as a warrior, and now in order to Spell Reflect, I need to be a certain level in PvP, which I don't do half as much as I do just questing. I would be more okay with the idea of I think any talent that you pick, if it has to occupy space on your bar, it should be available out in the overworld while you're questing, because if you're not PvP flagged, that's a key bind you have to dedicate to a completely different ability, which is only usable in a certain game field, and the alternative is just to have yourself flagged for PvP all the time, which is fine if you're on a
Yeah.
PvP
Yeah.
server.
well, that's something I'm
Okay.
curious about. With the new world PvP system, will those be available, seeing as you can't just flag on and off on the fly?
Yeah.
I kind of think that they will have to be, because I mean that seems, what you're talking about with them being available if you stay flagged out in the overworld. I did notice that, because one thing that I was wanting forever that I was glad to see back with the honor talents were the various utility curses for affliction.
Yeah.
Right.
And so having access to those is something, especially that would make me, really think about just staying flagged completely. I mean, I played on PvP servers before, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think if they make the honor talents more desirable overall for a wider variety of situations,
Yeah, I mean, same thing for
it'll
like,
encourage people.
yeah, like my I have traps that only work with honor talents. I'm used to having from back when I played survival before they revamped the whole thing.
If it were the case that these honor talents were completely new abilities that we didn't have before, like Dragon Charge for Protection Warriors is a really fun spell. You charge forward in a line. It's not based on having a target like Charge is, and everything in your way path just gets knocked back. Really dope. It's a lot of fun. And if it were, I couldn't make the argument that, oh, I'm used to having this in my baseline toolkit, so therefore I should still have the ability to use it whenever I want. It's a little hard to make that argument, but Not
Right,
not
well-
all not all of these. They have to rely on some useful things. Like what was it? Cyclone for druids is also a talent, an honor talent now.
Yeah. Well, back onto the question that was actually asked. I mean, I think we're obviously going to see touches up to the honor talents in
Mhm.
Battle for Azeroth, but just like the regular talents, there's always the cookie cutter builds that all
Yeah.
the top tier players are going to use. You're never going to get that perfect harmony where.
Th-
Although I've noticed a lot more flexibility in my honor talents than my standard ones. At least on
Yeah.
my warrior, you have the ones you put on if you're in a BG or if you're running 3s versus 2s. Are there casters? Are there lots of melee burst?
Let's see what they say.
Unless you're in some very specific situation that could only be written in fan fiction.
In fan fiction.
I
He's trying
Enough,
not to have to
I'm-
laugh. It wasn't that
I'm
funny,
interested in what
lore.
fanfiction
Come
you
on,
read.
dude.
It was
But-
in that moment that Sea-Doo realized. Tidebringer.
You're trying to get your shaman stuff.
Get
going
it
here.
together, Lore.
Okay, so yeah, I think honor talents definitely something that needs to evolve. This is actually something that, really in many ways is connected with the prestige system as well. We came into Legion with this structure that was,
With my
similar
needs
to other
is-
games, kind of Call of Duty-ish, where you earned honor talents that would prestige and originally reset that whole progression and keep unlocking them repeatedly. For a lot of reasons, that design didn't actually end up fitting or playing out in World of Warcraft the way we'd imagined. We're happy with where that side of things ended up. That said, yeah, there are a bunch of talents that aren't necessarily competitive within their individual rows. It also has ended up feeling much more than we'd like a barrier to entry for new people entering and approaching the system. It feels like if you're just getting into PvP until you've unlocked all your honor talents, you're kind of you're at a significant disadvantage compared to everybody else. Maybe you have the leftmost column, but some of the best talents for your class, for your spec, maybe elsewhere. So it doesn't really feel like a reward the way we hoped it would. So a couple of changes.
pause that
planned
real
to help
quick.
honor talents
Because correct me if I'm wrong, the way that Prestige works is it's you unlock the first option, the first tier, then the first option, the second tier, right?
Yeah.
Then you just go down a column.
Yep.
So isn't the subconscious thing that people are going to read that everything in the leftmost column are not as powerful as the things in the rightmost column? Because
I think you're definitely going to have people who aren't super familiar with PvP that think that.
I see.
But quite often, there's a lot of really powerful abilities in the leftmost column that will really help you out, at least in getting started and trying to get your honor gear.
The design
Because
seems
it's not. It isn't
intuitive
like
that way, is it?
It's kind of like with TF2 when a lot of the weapons were considered side grades as opposed to direct upgrades to the thing. It's just
Right.
it kind of depends on what sort of toolkit you
right.
want to bring to the situation.
might work in Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah.
Current thinking is actually moving away from having an exact mirror of our regular talent system where we have multiple rows of 3, and instead moving to a larger bucket where there may be couple dozen talents all in this single pool that you're choosing from, and you get to pick 3 out of that pool. Separately, we're probably going to keep a 4th slot that's just trinket customization, because I think that first row is actually one of the most successful ones. It's a
That's
mix
true.
of
That first row is pretty dope.
Yeah,
I actually
I'm
have to
glad.
think about that.
I don't know how I feel about just having a big pool to select from, but I am glad that they're keeping the trinket customized section there, because that it saves the day on my warrior every time.
Hit that play.
what gameplay you prefer, what situations you're in. Are you a healer likely to be trained all the time in battlegrounds, or do you want,
Healer, so yeah.
you'd like to use to adapt or otherwise? And it's hard to really make a player choose between your trinket and other honor talents. The trinket's kind of special, so that's going to stand on its own. But so imagine that for your other 3, you just have a pool of many of the existing honor talents that you know and love, as well as some new ones. It gives us a chance to get rid of some that haven't worked out at all, that clearly are unpopular or aren't contributing to good gameplay. And you pick whichever 3 you want for the given situation, and that gives you more flexibility in constructing a build as well. If you want to focus on mobility, that's something you'll be more able to do when you're not just choosing within, let's say, a mobility row, but rather you might have multiple options that you can all focus on, or defense, or control, or whatever you prefer for how you want to play the game, how you want to work out with your teammates. And these talents will be unlocked just as you level up naturally, like your player level, not your honor level. So just in the course of leveling up to 110, 120, when you hit max level, you'll have access to the entire pool of talents.
That's cool.
And even if you've never done a battleground before, you'll jump in with the same options available to you to at least customize your character and work your way up from there.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. There's lots of different ways that could play. I'm a big fan of here's a ton of options. You can only pick a couple of them from this giant list sort of approach, because it allows you to do a lot of really fun and interesting stuff with the different honor talents as well. So that I'm really excited for that.
Overall, I think
I didn't know about that.
More freedom of choice and lower barrier to entry is kind of what we're approaching the system with.
We'll have to keep an
Question
eye
here
on
from
that.
Baby Back Rib, and we've obviously been talking about this a bunch already, but will there be any other PvP updates in Battle for Azeroth than the already announced world PvP changes? So we just went over a couple. Yeah,
so
like Prestige, Honor Talents.
This is the question where someone's asking about general PvP
as
updates,
mentioned
so
at BlizzCon, we obviously have the new
Barnabas.
Battleground that you're going to get a preview of in Silithus coming up soon. That will be dropping before Battle for
We're
Azeroth
doing
hits.
so well.
New arena maps. In general, separately on the rewards and mechanics side, we also have other changes that we're working on. I think one of the biggest, most controversial changes we made to PvP in Legion was moving to fixed stat templates for characters when you are in any sort of rated, organized PvP environment. Or
makes a comment about affliction warlocks at some point during one of these.
And
I felt personally attacked.
The goal there was again, lowering barriers to entry, minimizing the importance of gear, or the sense that if you were just hitting max level or didn't have the latest greatest stuff, you were at a hopeless disadvantage. And I think the way you used to gear up in PvP had some of those downsides to it. It was until you got your resilience up or whatever, you would just queue into BGs, get completely splattered, but kind of grind enough honor until you could get enough gear to hold your own. And then it felt like, okay, you earned the right to participate as an equal, but that wasn't really a reward. So we're trying to solve all those things. But we do feel like it's likely that we gave up a bit too much in terms of those RPG dynamics that still underlie what this entire game is and what this environment is. And that we can find ways of making item level a bit less important in PvP while still letting players customize their stats, customize their gear. We've actually taken some cues for how level scaling works in the outdoor world, how it's possible for a 103 player and a 107 player to group together and fight a dungeon boss and have the mechanics work out such that both of them can have a balanced and compelling experience. The healer can heal the tank despite their level differences, and it works out. There's some ways that we could adapt that logic in a different way to PvP combat, where you still wear gear still matters, gear still has the stats that you want. If you want to stack crit, you can stack crit. If you want to stack mastery, you can stack mastery. But if someone has an eye level that's 50 above yours, they're not actually 50% stronger than you. They may still only be 5 to 10% stronger than you because of how the combat calculations work out. And I think that could get us the more compressed tuning range. Because I think for raid progression, for dungeon progression at endgame, we want huge power gaps. We want the sense that, this raid is meaningfully harder than the last one, and you need to gear up, and maybe you're not as good as Method, but when you get to this boss, 3 months in, you're going to have much more gear and artifact power and whatever else, and so you'll have an advantage. And that requires large power jumps. That's not what we really want in PvP. I think we want gear to matter, but not to the point that you don't stand a fighting chance against somebody because you haven't yet caught up. And so keeping customization, still controlling power, and what this also means is that it maybe lets us go back to some more familiar and perhaps successful systems of delivering PvP loot through things like vendors and giving you more control over gear and what's in a world where it's not just the item level, the piece that matters.
Oh my goodness.
There's a lot to take in there. I'm very excited to not only have to look at item level when getting any sort of gear for PvP, especially when you don't get high item level gear without doing rated PvP. The
method of delivering gear this expansion has been so bad.
Oh my god, it's absolute garbage. You can buy PvP gear, but you have to obliterate like 15 pieces to get enough.
Yeah, that exchange has been a barrier for entry for me, for sure. I just decided not to even bother. I just go in with whatever I'm wearing.
Yeah, it's garbage.
It's like I'm trying to get. I have a transmog that I want to do that I need to risk for one of the current PvP sets with. It's like you need 1,000 tokens and a piece of PvP gear you get from PvP.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion around like, I like to play my mage.
I'm all for bringing back gear vendors.
iStack Mastery on my
Is that a Blizzard-themed
arcade
water
mode,
bottle?
no iStack
The logo
or something
pointed
like that instead.
perfectly towards the camera.
So it's really
Of
cool
course
to,
it was.
to see that sort of.
God, I only
Oh,
PvP,
multi-level
but I'm
market.
getting sick of these guys talking about PvP.
Yeah, same.
Question here from E-Roll.
Like I like the templates thing because it makes it where I don't have to grind out full sets and stuff,
Oh.
but it needs to be tweaked.
How
Or
will
PvP.
how will the world PvP work? You said that people across all servers will be separate between PvE and PvP status, but will allow all PvP players from every server be on the same instance? Or will it be separate as it is now?
I
Oh,
would have to imagine it would be similar to this. Like, we're probably going to be with a bunch of other RP servers, right?
all these PvP questions are turning into a bit of an endurance test, though.
Yeah.
PvP status, but will all PvP players from every server be
I
on
hope
the
this is
same
a short
instance,
answer.
or will
No one-
it be separated
No,
as
we're just
it
gonna
is
talk
now?
over this
There
one.
are lots of different
Yeah.
questions since we started talking about this at BlizzCon. In terms
my
of
goodness.
just what the new world PvP.
We're all curious about how it's
situation
going to
is.
turn out,
To
though.
sum this one up,
Get
they
some,
just did that
clarity on how
RP
it's gonna
servers stay on the same sharding
okay,
systems
so
that they have now. So it's not
Sharding is
really
still a
gonna change
problem
much.
for RP servers
The
in
name of this
general.
mode, and you venture out,
Is
you're
it?
Warcraft
Because
Oh,
they said
yeah.
they've already changed the rules of that as of like January.
And
They've
it's
changed
for
that
like
one.
low traffic areas, but not for high traffic areas like Dalaran, so you could still be grouped with somebody and not
No,
be
obviously
not be able to see
players-
them.
Not literally all players across
Yeah.
the entire region can fit in the exact same instance of the zone. Otherwise, that would crash our servers and not be the greatest experience. But so they're still shards. But
Still
on the
shards.
PvP side of things, we're able to sort of help determine the populations of a given zone with more of an eye towards faction balance than we normally otherwise have.
Okay.
Keep your groups together, all of that. But the goal here is
Keep
even
groups
if you
together?
are
I fucking
on,
hope so.
Mal'Ganis, which is 99% Horde in North America, or you're on Sargeras, which is just as
I'm gonna go
skewed towards
use the
Alliance.
restroom real
When you
quick.
go
Just
into a
keep this
PvP
playing.
server, you're
Yeah.
able to see people from the opposite faction. You can actually have that PvP experience. And so part of what makes the system satisfying is our ability to construct the shard balance in that way. And now the one exception to this will be RP servers. So shout out to Emerald Dream and other similar boats
Hey.
out there. RP servers will still continue to follow the existing RP server rules, where there is no involuntary sharding or coalescing. Obviously, you can intentionally group across servers; that's still allowed. But if you turn on this mode on Emerald Dream, when you go out into the world, you'll see people from Emerald Dream specifically, and not
Okay.
random other servers.
Well, that's considerate.
Will it still on the
Yeah.
RP servers? Will it still allow you to pick between the PvP mode and PvE
Oh,
mode
of course.
when you go out in the world?
Yes.
That's just
That's exactly. Yeah. So really,
faction balance might become a bit tricky. with RP
Yeah.
servers.
I'll take the pros with the cons as far as RP goes, though, because that's more our concern, keeping the people that we're used to having around in the same zones, rather than
Right.
faction balance necessarily.
Because you're on this server,
Right. Though I'd much rather have it where you just merge RP zones so that you're not one fucking horde running around with 90 alliance.
You can hop between those modes
True.
I'm back. Are we still on World PvP?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I even
They
got
just
some
talked about
water.
RP servers.
What'd they say?
It's gonna be the same.
The content was not going to be accessible or make sense.
All right,
Okay,
well,
cool. Yeah, I know. I've played on PvP servers for the entire span of the game.
Lord,
and
please
that's
go to the next
because
question.
I enjoy that sort of risk
Pretty
of being out
please.
in the open and someone might come out and try and attack me. But every
This
once
is
in a
what you
while,
get when you try
I'll
to
take my
use some
world quest
t-shirts.
done.
That
Go
risk of
out
being
there,
out in the
just
open
world
has been the
quest, come back.
absolute
Yeah,
worst in Legion.
You
You just get someone with a stupid OP legendary and you're done. Absolute garbage.
It's like I actually like World PvP, but up until they tweaked them, I guess I haven't tried since then. I remember trying to fight a tank, and it was just
Oh,
it
pause
was
this.
like hitting them with a foam hammer. It was just pointless.
Is it possible we could get a server where all cross-realm features, including Sharget and Charting Artists? Yeah, but it wouldn't be fucking roleplay
We
realms.
were just talking about. Is it possible that we could get a server where all cross-play features, including
Oh, were they just
sharding,
talking
are
about that?
disabled?
Yeah, so roleplay servers work kind of like this in that we accept in the cases of extreme load, we disable these features involuntarily. That is to say, we're not just going to randomly split you up without your control across multiple shards or pulling people from other
Well, you're
realms.
doing that
The
now.
exception to this is events and times of high traffic when
Oh, times of high
Battle for
traffic.
Azeroth. And the entire server population is gathering around one of a couple of NPCs to kick off the expansion, we are going to shard the cities in that specific case. So that
gets hard with big RP events with lots of people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you ever went to those Trisfall Theater group plays that they would have going on, and half the place would be sharded. Like, the people that weren't sitting in the very front row, like, couldn't see anyone else.
Yeah, and it's super disheartening to be RPing with someone and they disappear while walking away.
It still happens. Last I checked, it still happens in like the Legion instance of Dalaran on RP servers. There's more than one time we were trying to gather together and be in character at an inn, and some people couldn't join in. Our workaround was to go to the old school Dalaran, but it's a bit inconvenient since the Dalaran Hearthstone doesn't tie you to that one.
And it's a bit cold.
But we always view those as temporary changes, with the default state being default sharding and coalescing disabled. That said, it's not completely disabled in the sense that you can't voluntarily do it if you want to do it, right? We don't have a server where
Just breathing into the mic.
There's no cross-realm group finder or the ability to...
Oh, that's me with my busted headset. Sorry, dude.
You're alright, dude.
And I mean,
I try to like position it so it doesn't do that, but
you're good.
I'm just kind of dangling there.
Coughing into mine.
We currently have any plans on doing. I think we generally feel.
Oh, not any plans on doing.
To play with your friends.
30 seconds of explanation just to say nah.
Sure.
I'm actually kind of. That doesn't bug me at all.
No, it doesn't bug me either.
No, sharding's been really helpful.
The server identity in those communities, and we get most of the benefits while still allowing for play with your friends in other realms.
Yeah, opt-in sharding and cross-realm features are like if you don't want to do those, then just don't. But there's nothing that's gonna really, except for what you were talking about, nothing that's gonna really force you into it otherwise. Cool. Next question here from Warfist. Asking,
that's a good name. I like that.
What are the rewards of the new Uncharted
Islands?
Like Mythic
I'm interested in this.
So we talked to BlizzCon a little bit about islands and...
do you want to tell Barnaby the question?
The question, Barnabas, is what are the rewards of the new Uncharted Islands, and are they going to scale like Mythic plus Dungeons?
I can read. I mean, you have shared screen up.
Duh. I'm sorry.
Wow. I forgot about that too.
Damn it!
No, can't read. Sorry.
Dirt.
Resource that you'll be using to power up the Heart of Azeroth, but
okay, so Azerite.
We're thinking about normal, heroic, and mythic versions of the islands currently, as well as a PvP mode for them. On the PvE,
PvP.
But with the increasing difficulty, probably much like other reward systems in our game. Some powerful gear, more powerful gear, and higher difficulties. Details to follow as we kind of dial in the exact tuning of those reward systems in our alpha.
Okay. Next question from...
Why can't they all go through them this quickly?
Says,
that's awesome.
Do Warfronts take some elements from Warcraft RTS?
Yes, please.
Building units and being able to use
That's exactly how it's been described. Come on, Death Leecher.
Sort of frame them as, this is kind of trying to take that...
Oh my god, I love... Can't they just screen out questions where they're like, we've already explained this. They just...
Yes.
Does that go, I guess?
In this expansion, will there be PvP?
Yeah. Will PvP exist? But no, I mean that's what I figured when I heard this was happening today. Though I figured we'd just get a lot of questions that had been clearly answered had you paid attention to any of the leaks or anything up until this point,
or even the announcement.
It's not been
the
terrible.
Official announcement. Is there a new expansion coming out?
It's not been terrible.
I kind of do want to hear what
Azeroth.
Well, no,
we're really going
much
this
about.
guy.
Yeah, come on, guys. I do want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, maybe they'll give something new.
In an MMO wrapper, and so when you say being able to use them, no, you don't get to build, train grunts or footmen and control them literally RTS style by
clicking around on them,
doing any of that. Another way of viewing it is more imagine a Warcraft 3 map if you got to play as the hero on that map. So in many ways you might be, clearing creep, you might be bringing resources back to your base, contributing them to help upgrade your town hall to level 2 so that you can build an armory, so that you can train this new unit type. And when you train that unit type, which you can do, they will just follow you into battle or charge off towards an objective, but you're going to be the one leading them towards the front line.
I'm so hyped for this, dude.
An enemy encampment.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to feel awesome.
So, very heavy inspiration, but it's not an RTS.
Right.
To be clear.
Yeah, it doesn't suddenly switch into a top-down clicking around
It is
and
core World of
dragging
Warcraft
boxes.
combat mechanics.
Okay.
With
I can't
very
wait.
heavily
I
artistic
cannot
styles.
That makes
wait.
a lot of sense, and I imagine that's probably what most people were expecting after
Yeah.
what we were talking about.
I'm skeptical still.
Wow.
Question from Mad Max, who asked, during BFA, can Horde characters visit Kul'Tiras and Alliance
Yes.
characters visit
Yes.
and will there
Been
be
answered.
The
Let's
second
go.
half of the
bases
question
of
is
each faction
interesting,
in
though.
both
Will there be
islands? I know
camps or
we talked a
bases
little
on
bit
each
about this
faction?
in the past as well.
Mhm.
I'll pause
sort
real
of
quick.
Zam-
I like how we talked a little bit about this as a low-key way of saying this is covered, dumbass.
Yeah.
A little bit,
experience
yeah.
For the Horde, Kul'Tiras is the leveling experience for the Alliance, and then it sort of crosses over once you reach max level. But how does that actually work?
Mhm.
So yes,
Or did
to
I
both
just say
questions.
everything?
Pretty
Did
much.
I just say it? Yeah, right.
Yes, both.
We alluded
Yes,
to
to
it
both
following
questions.
the war campaign. In many ways, it's the successor to the garrison campaign or the class order campaign.
Here's a fun drinking
As
game.
you level up,
When they
Drink
get
every time they answer a question that's already been announced.
that, or take an extra shot if you can see them slowly dying inside when they have to reiterate.
A small base of operations.
You think that's bad? You should see
Drink
them
every time they say,
slowly
didn't
die
we answer
inside.
this one?
This will also introduce you to the zone.
Take a shot every time Laura badly memes.
Help explain some motivation
Damn.
for why at max level you're going to want to go.
Yeah, so from what I've heard so far, it's more or less just storyline, lore, fun stuff.
So basically, World Quest bases. Yes to both questions.
Well, from what I got, it's more like WoD exploring through a zone, getting really immersed in it,
Okay, so
I
kind
see.
of like
which I'm
it's like the
excited for
leveling
because I
experience
love
is
that.
Sort of like, let's go to this new area. We know this war is coming. Let's go to this
Huh,
new
how far are we
area
through this
and
video?
Try to get the support of the
Like
this new
2/3.
area.
2/3. That's
And
good.
maybe
Okay,
make a
I would.
couple
We're
of
we're
Alright,
we're an
we'll
hour.
make it through, yeah.
We're an hour 25 on the recording. I'd like not to do an
Lore is
intermission
here.
again
Let's
because
go.
that was more editing work. Did anyone see the intermission music?
What are the Alliance up to?
Oh, no, I didn't.
It's Curb
Oh,
Your-
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, there's only 25 minutes left.
Okay, dope.
And building up a
That would
We've
be
been
alright.
pausing it less than we were at the beginning.
Yeah.
Beachfront Cove base that can serve as a staging ground for.
Oh,
Dayon.
nice.
That's just one example.
So basically, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
There we go.
Question here from Ranthe, who asked, in the dev water cooler, it was mentioned that you want to return a lot of class and spec-specific benefits and abilities, a la CC availability and the
Ooh,
like.
pause on this
How
real
will this
quick.
be balanced?
I don't care how it's balanced. I'm just glad that they're returning. I don't know if you guys have seen, but in part of the alpha data mining, like druids are getting hibernating. I think hunters are getting tranquilizing shot back if they don't already
I missed
have it.
that one.
Um,
I think we have it. It might be like an auto talent. Actually, I think it's like a
Yeah,
sleep arrow
these
or something. But
just these nice class flavors I'm happy with, and I'm hoping that shamans are going to get their bind elementals back, because I thought it was a perfect ability for them to have, just to feel like a shaman. You fight with elementals, but of course you're going to have tools of dealing with elementals, I'm sure. I don't even care how they're going to balance. I'm just glad that some of that flavor stuff is coming back.
I mean, yeah, warlocks fight with demons, they can deal with demons. Death knights fight with zombies, they can deal with zombies. It just
Yeah,
makes
as much
sense.
as we've knocked on warlords, like I really enjoyed playing my hunter during that time because I played survival hunter and we had just this really great toolkit to work with. That was really fun.
Yeah, go ahead, hit play. I want to see what they've got to say.
In order to avoid
It's gonna be-
class stacking. And I know we've seen a little bit of this through data mining over the past few days.
Oh, they're aware of all the
but
data
talking a lot
mining, so you
about,
know they front load
class
it.
and spec specific benefits. How are we actually going to prevent that from turning into bring the class, not the player?
That's a
We're
fair
not always going
concern.
to. Sometimes you should bring the
Okay.
class.
Fair
It's a
enough.
great answer. I like that.
Pug leader, and
Sometimes you should bring the
have,
class.
You know, 3
So
mages and 3 hunters and 0 warlocks, and you have 3 applicants for a spot in your group, and one's a hunter, one's a mage, and one's a warlock. There should be compelling reasons to want to bring the class that you don't have.
there you go. See,
to
I
some
like
extent,
that.
that's the
All right.
class stacking.
That's
People got their rules again.
Actually,
That's completely fair.
encourage a wide diversity of class and spec representation. I think, the most successful RBG groups, the most successful mythic raids, these should have people with as many different tools as possible. And I think, in a lot of ways, when there's too much homogenization and multiple
Hey!
people
Yes!
bringing this exact
Like
same
6
tool,
affliction warlocks on heroic
no one
Argus.
who is best.
Oh
There's
my
no one who is
god, I hate
well,
homogenization,
in the name of
dude.
stun, there's like 7 people who bring that, but one of them also brings the best.
Wrath did really cool stuff, introducing like profession-specific stuff that would bring something to raids. Like during the robot boss, you had those electronic tinker belts that would stun all the little mini robots, you know, so it gave you an extra AoE during that.
That's ideal.
That would stun them, and that was actually really useful. You should get an achievement. It's called like nerf engineering or something like that. If you kill so many robots in a certain amount of time.
That's pretty dope.
And so,
we're talking over Hazzikostas like crazy, and I'm fine with that because he's mostly just waxing on the idea of bring the class, not the player, as and where that's appropriate. And I can think of reasons.
You didn't call him Mister that time. Well done.
And
I didn't call him Mister, or I did.
Gameplay.
I don't care.
No, you didn't.
We're talking over Papa Hazi right now.
Papa Hazi. For you, okay. His name is now Papa Hazi.
I dig it.
Situations that make those
I'll put in a vote for the Haz.
Papa Hazi and Josh. Josh.
While other classes have tiny little niche effects.
You've been saying the same thing for like 10 minutes, dude.
Achieving our goals that way.
It's actually
Come on.
Come on, Papa Haz.
Papa Hazi.
I hope that people listening to it can like break up what we're saying from what they're saying. If it's like going to be just crazy to listen to with us all talking at the same time.
I'm pretty sure we're going to come off as much louder than them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll double check on that though.
It really was. I mean, I remember when, Ghostcrawler posted blogs about this.
Good old Ghostcrawler.
It was early Wrath days. It was a response to a completely degenerate situation at the end of Burning Crusade.
Degenerate.
Hey now.
Would you call me?
Almost everything was party-based. It was, Battle Shout. It was Wind Fury.
Battle Shout's coming back. I'm so happy.
It was all of that.
Fortitude's coming back.
That led to this bizarre Tetris jigsaw puzzle situation, just constructing groups where it wasn't like you could say we actually really want an extra rogue because they have a great tool that will help us on this encounter, but there isn't room in the melee group for them.
Yeah.
And unless they have Battle Shout, unless they have, whatever else, they're not actually going to be effective.
God.
You're better off. You need to bring a caster.
That car alarm coming through my audio.
Caster synergy group.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the part of that's what we meant.
It's really not bad.
Way back when.
It's pretty loud.
We want you to bring the player, not the class. We don't want to be in a situation where we're saying, okay, the only thing that will fit right now into this group composition matrix that we have is this particular narrow
There we go. It's gone.
thing. Now, that can be interpreted as yes, no. If you have 7 players who are all hunters, yeah, you probably actually should at some point value wanting to bring.
But why?
A wider
Wrong.
Hunters can solo everything, man.
Hunters are the
What's
best.
the point of making a hunter? So you don't need a group.
None of the weapon drops will be wasted.
We know.
Yeah, all the loot's for you.
Yeah.
DPS class especially apply to a group, and you feel like you just get turned down 5-6 times in a row. The experience on the flip side, though, is often...
Why do they go so long on this one
Papa
particular
Hazi,
question?
come on.
It's not like they don't have a plethora of questions they could answer.
For 2 slots.
It's not like he hasn't already answered it.
Hard choice for them to,
That's good. Yeah, we're getting less homogenization, some more rules.
item level,
We got it.
who has the highest rate or IO score.
They want basically a lot of factors to go into why you bring somebody, not just the class, not just the item level, not just the tools, but
it's not just about who is perceived to be 3% better on the damage meters.
Oh my
There
god.
should always be a space for your class and a spot.
I feel like
for
he's
your
just
class
adding
to
out
make it more
time.
likely and easier to find
Sure.
a spot.
He must know
I mean, hey.
that they're close to ending, and they're just like,
He's like, how many questions do we want to take?
this is Papa Hazi's filibuster of the live stream.
No one wants you anymore. There should be more consistency there.
He's doing good, though.
Yeah.
It's easy.
If we're just buffering it.
I would argue that things have gotten so much to the point, what we're trying to get away from, so much to the point where your class doesn't matter as much, and it is just about what DPS you bring, how much your healing is, to the point where guilds will be like, sorry, you're not an Affliction Warlock, so we don't need you.
That's right, fuck you.
Top spec happens to be the perceived
Barnabas,
top
they got
spec.
attacked.
Just kidding. I love Warlocks. I need your cookies and your portals.
Yeah, give me those raw.
Is that one where he was like,
Yeah.
is that one where he's like, no king reigns forever, talking about Applocks? Yeah.
Right,
I was
right.
like, I feel personal violence has been done to me right now.
All right. Question. Okay. terrifying there for a second.
Oh
Very
my
ominous.
god.
Question here
Oh,
from
thank God.
Eliaris, who said, in the water cooler you mentioned class utility and identity.
Did we
Can you
just
talk
ask
about
this?
Specs, main role, strength, and weakness.
No.
BFA have
No.
class-wide
Drink.
something that, like,
We just
I specifically
went over
need
it.
a Shadow Priest.
Drink.
Oh my god.
I don't have any
Drink.
food.
Yes, I think
I got sweet tea. I'm drinking that.
I got water. I'm gonna take me like 3
Hey,
shots
me
after this.
too.
I feel like I'm gonna need to go take a nap after this. I'm exhausted of class utility.
We were exhausted of PvP before.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got some nuance that they'd like to share that we're talking right over, but I have a goal for the duration of this
It really
video, and
does
I
need
am
to, like,
meeting it.
Stop.
Whatever.
I don't see him
Questions with so much
repeating the
overlap,
entire
though.
thing he just said
Yeah.
completely over, but
Shout out to Glade Warden for giving a question that didn't make me want to die. You my homie.
When you have hybrids, there's some tools that we really want to keep closely wedded to specific roles. Like major raid-wide healing cooldowns, for example. We want you'd have to be a restoration shaman to have that, or a holy paladin to have
That's
that.
fair.
It's a core
That's fair.
role function. And I think in the past,
I can
the
get that.
hybrids.
you had things like hybrid tranquility and
I liked my hybrid
other
class.
much more effective inception
Yeah.
etc. You actually saw in a lot of ways DPS utility eat away at the core functionality of being a healer. And in
Yeah.
this area, you just had a lot of cooldown rotations that let you underheal fights drastically and made the healer's job feel much less important. We don't want class-wide utility in a way that stomps on core functionality.
Right.
But when we're talking about tools of who is great at mobility, who is great at crowd control, who has unique abilities like whether it's everything from spell steal to death grip to whatever else, those are things that should feel like all members of a class can bring and contribute that.
That makes sense. Yeah, like if you're a shadow priest and you respec holy, at the moment
Never.
that feels a little bit weird to me, 'cause it's like I hate the light. I'm all about the shadow. I changed my mind. Now I'm all about the light and I hate the shadow, but I'll change my mind again a little
I don't
bit
even have my
and
other
do some world
holy and discipline artifacts.
So yeah,
Damn.
it's interesting to hear going back more.
And if you want to be a real special snowflake, you can be a void elf who likes light and shadow and be a void elf holy priest.
Question from you.
Nah,
now,
disc
who
priest,
said,
because
with
you're
Legion,
both.
many
Oh,
classes
here's
are
another one.
designed around the artifact and its traits. How are you planning on keeping all classes interesting if you're only planning to keep a
Ooh,
few artifact abilities?
Yes,
and
if you guys haven't noticed on the data mining, which I'd like to go into, like the
I don't
third or
know
fourth
if it's
episode,
completely accurate that the classes were redesigned
some
around
traits
artifacts.
are
Sure.
I
getting
think
baked
the
in
classes
to
were redesigned,
their
and
classes.
artifacts were
I
layered
did hear
on
that,
top.
yeah.
Certainly,
Arms Warrior for sure.
tuning was certainly done with the artifact.
Sorry, I gotta pause real. Do any of you guys play classes where you feel like your artifact just makes it interesting?
Okay, so
Go ahead.
definitely. Oh my goodness, my hunter was so boring before. Like once they invented survival and then took away all my utility, because I didn't want to play a melee hunter still. So I switched to marksman. I was like, man, it's just really kind of lame. So got a few more unlocks with the artifact, and yeah, it made it more playable. But even then, it was kind of boring compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, no,
I
I
was used to
agree.
survival, so even with the artifact unlocks, yeah, I think it was severely lacking.
Yeah, well, even coming off of WoD, I mained marksman since Wheegil existed, and it's just
So
gotten
even-
so dumbed down without the artifact.
So even from
element.
going from marksman to new marksman, because I went from survival to marksman.
Yeah, well, marksman used to have an execute ability. We used to have kill shot. We had all these fun little utilities to play
Yeah.
around with, and now we've got like 4 buttons to push. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we had that explosive trap with survival. We had actually a few different cool traps with
Yeah,
survival.
we had explosive trap too. Those were the
Mhm.
days I could knock people off of the lumber
Yeah,
mill in
off of
Arathi
lumber
Basin.
mill. It
I
was
am
so-
sad.
I can still do that though with if I get the honor talent.
And
it's fun. I love it.
Yeah.
I've saved the thing from getting capped a few times by by accident, pretty much.
It's a good time.
It's best than Eye of the Storm, though, on the central near the flag.
There's
Oh,
a
God.
baseline, a core set of abilities and tools that a class has. Then there's enhancements that you get.
Power shot. I missed that ability because it was just like a huge knockback in PvP, knock people off of stuff, off of towers and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah.
And I think the main system where these things are going to live in Battle for Azeroth is Azerite armor. So you'll have at least
Okay.
one that
Okay.
you're wearing
Interesting. Okay.
with the ability to customize
So,
your character.
okay, that's
accordingly.
gonna be interesting.
And some
Okay.
of the things that might have been artifact traits may find
I don't
their way
know.
in the system.
From what we've
not
heard
one
so
for
far, I
mountains,
don't
but
actually
that
hate
type
the
of
Azerite armor
sorts of
idea.
things they're gonna add to
I
it.
don't
I don't know if I like it yet, though.
I don't know if I know enough about it.
Now, that's not to say we're not making a lot of changes where needed to baseline rotations to baseline classes. If a class's rotation or a spec's rotation only flowed well at max level because of 5 points you had in a trait that reduced the cost of your builder and some extra filler that you had through an active button, and when we pull those things out, yeah, we realize there are some big gaps there. We need to fill those gaps.
I don't know why they gave. They're baking the Arms Warrior ability into its kit with a Colossus Smash button or something.
That's what new things are for. That's
They're also
Oh,
redesigning it.
some baseline
They're also
Are they?
redesigning. Yeah, something like it. It's just not going to be called Warbreaker anymore. Or it might still be, but it doesn't apply Colossus Smash. I forget.
Oh, I mean, that's fine. I never use that ability anyway.
Yeah.
Or making sure that you weren't, GCD locked.
Kind of funny if they're baking in a not often used ability into a class.
Yeah, like I'm
Well,
sort of, as you're talking about
It
this, thinking
definitely
about,
has its utility if, like, you're in
head,
PvP and you want to
um,
Blade Storm, get Colossus Smash
Oh,
up
yeah.
on everyone
and
around
how,
you.
As Fire, Phoenix's Flames is like one of the most important abilities. You need to be using that like constantly. Whereas Mark of Alaneth, well as Arcane, like yes, it's a very important ability and you should be using it as often as possible. If suddenly Mark of Alaneth went away, I would just be like, all right, well, it's one less button to push every minute. But if Phoenix's Flames goes away, all of a sudden I'm like, how does my rotation even work?
Right, and so the answer there may be A, your rotation needs to change, but B, if that's central enough, as it was, we want to make sure that people who like that gameplay still have the option to take that, so it's likely going to find its home in talents
Okay.
Fire Mages, if for those who want it. It's also important to bear in mind, I know it's easy to lose track of this. At this point, your artifact abilities probably feel inseparable from your class. And that's actually a failure.
I can live without him if I get my old stuff back.
We're trying to improve with the Heart of Azeroth and Azeroth armor in BFA. You made all the unlocks and all the.
I could lose the Trot Warrior ability and not get anything back and be fine.
Forever.
Yeah, like the wind arrow thing. Yeah, I can live
It's
without
so
that.
dumb.
I like that ability as someone who's not a hunter because it gives me a little path since I'm in melee to run away from
Other
stuff
people
quicker.
enjoy it more than I get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never used it to my advantage.
So it's a good utility button, but not for you.
Yeah, it's great for everyone else. Like Demon Hunters love me in their group because it helps them run around faster.
Yeah, boy.
And get something else in its place.
I don't know.
I have designed the artifact system the way we did if we were approaching it from the perspective of all of these things are going to carry forward and become baseline parts of the class. If anything, in the past, I think we've spoken about how we regret a lot of homogenization and bloat that's come out of past expansions where we added 3 new abilities, 5 new abilities, not because classes needed them, but just for the sake of hitting those targets of, okay, everybody's got to have 5, let's come up with 5. The artifact was never about giving everybody, 20 new passives and a new active or 2. It was more about a temporary expansion and extension of your character's capabilities through this weapon that was going to be left behind and replaced with something new and different and also exciting.
Cool. Question here from Jorthas, who asked, are we going to see a lot
Ooh.
more in-depth rework
Hey, boys.
survival
Listen
hunt?
up.
Currently
Okay.
feels extremely difficult to play with minimized reward and is
Yeah, but I'm not interested in playing survival as it is now.
In the,
Well,
in
they
the
might
water
rework
cooler,
it.
I believe we were talking about how, whereas obviously Legion and Warlords before it had a lot of very major changes to how classes worked, we're trying to not do that so much for Battle for Azeroth. I believe Survival Hunter is one of the exceptions there.
Like, I'm not interested in having a pet.
Survival's seeing a pretty significant rework.
Not interested in using a
Some of
pole
the
arm
data in some of the data
unless I'm like
out there circulating so
a
far.
melee class.
This is actually another example where
Do what they say.
we put spec fantasy above class fantasy. It
Ooh.
actually, it's kind of implausible and a little silly that, okay, your class is a hunter. You are a hunter. Upon hitting level 10, you forgot how to use a bow. And you decided,
All right,
"No,
yep.
I'm going to focus on or specialize in also being a potent hand-to-hand combatant. But I'm just going to, never mind. I'm going to put this bow down.
I can't hit people
put
with
this
this.
gun down and just be a pure melee. That was, I think, a step too far. I think we got
Hey.
caught up in the fantasy of, all right, you have the ranged sniper, you have the close-up melee combatant, and they were almost starting to feel like two different classes rather than sides of the same class that more heavily accentuated one element or the other. And so I think the new survival is likely to have a better balance of melee and range capabilities. They will still be, uniquely the melee hunter, but they're still going to be a hunter, and that's important.
Yeah.
And then, yes, there's details about the flow.
Hey, give them throwing axes.
Reward, all of that.
Yeah.
So you can have that troll classic,
Nice. That'd be dope.
But it's one of them that we've looked at. And we
You can have the elf archers and the troll berserker guys with the axes. Yeah, I'd be down with that.
We'll be learning more about.
I will allow a brief pause right here because I want to hear Qualia. Does that sound like a decent compromise?
Like if you played like Warcraft 2, you got introduced to having new races besides the orcs and humans, and you got the elves, and you got like the trolls and goblins and stuff on your faction. So that's when we got introduced to having archers and stuff, and the troll berserkers, which were like the class matching units, and they're both just like the ranged units. So I'm saying survivals, give them the axes. You just throw axes.
But I'm interested what they still want. They clearly want survival to still be a melee focused hunter. Is that enough of a compromise for you?
Oh, I'm not going to play it. No.
If they tweak it around a bunch, I might actually make a new character to try it out.
I know who's gonna like it. Ganjo
I would be
will.
more happy being able to be say I made a troll hunter, and he can be the ranged guy, but then maybe being able to use melee, not the opposite.
Maybe they can base it kind of off of the Zul'jin kit and HOTS. But go ahead and hit play again.
Question here from Moirin, who asked, is the removal of blink-type movement talents from Shaman and Druid on early BFA data mining one of the results of the focus on class uniqueness you mentioned in your blog post?
When did Shaman have a blink ability?
Pruning, the dreaded P word.
Pruning, the dreaded P word.
I think, there's the fact that you describe them as blink-type movement talents is actually kind of telling.
Oh,
right?
so that's a good point.
Because that's a mage ability. That's where this all began. That's a core mage functionality.
I agree with that.
And thinking about it, there's value in that type of teleportation being something that is maybe not exclusively.
So, because Void Elf's got to be able to do everything, right?
Whereas a druid, they should move quickly. For them, it's been more about dash, that space.
Yeah,
right?
the idea of a druid
and
teleporting has never made
have
sense
bursts
to
of
me.
speed.
I'm just gonna say it. I think it's
not that
dumb. I
only
think
mages
Displacer
have
Beast
movement
is
abilities
dumb.
and one
I don't
else
take it
can
on my
move.
druid.
Of course
I
there's
don't think
gonna
any
have
druid
movement
should
abilities.
use it.
But
It's
in terms of
dumb.
the exact flavor of how it presents itself, both the druid and the shaman really transform into something else that, whether it's you're free from restrictions or can just move faster. Ghost Wolf and Travel Form, Cat, those are more the spaces where movement is appropriate for those classes, as opposed to, I think, frankly, just a very loosely re-kitted, re-described version of Displacer Beast is basically and Blink is super fun. No question that it's a fun ability.
That is the sound, the rallying cry of all shamans and druids in response to this question.
Not super fun. I certainly don't expect people to be excited about losing a tool that they enjoy.
Finally, it's gone.
Though, for those of
I'm
you
celebrating
who
that it's gone. I play a
devotees,
druid.
Whatever. It's not too much changes.
Sound I don't like, but felt like I had to
the key here
take.
And really, the dreaded P word, the point of pruning is it's scaling back some things to make room for others. It's not, the point here isn't, we want druids to be weaker all around.
Room for
It's
others.
weaker.
That's a
It's
big point. I'm
we'd
happy with
rather
pruning as long as we
double
get
down on
something
strength.
out of
We'd
it.
rather find ways in which they can more uniquely differentiate themselves and feel strong, potent, fun, valuable in their own way, rather than just copying the thing mages can do.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. I believe we got time for
How many
one more
times has he
question.
said makes sense?
I'd like to answer this.
Oh,
one.
I don't
That
even
would be
want
good.
to.
That's another
Drink.
Question
Yeah,
comes from
exactly.
Katya,
We're
who
gonna come up
said,
with the drinking game.
Any thoughts on Titanforge weapons in BFA and the implications of the Titanforge system when applied to what could be the most crucial item slot for a lot of classes and specs? We've gotten tons of feedback about Titanforging and Warforging, especially if we've gotten later in Legion. And I think a lot of people are now looking at, so my artifact weapon is going away. I'm going to be using regular weapons again. What does that mean with Titanforge? Am I going to get like a plus 80 Titanforged weapon?
That's a good
and
question.
become a god. Is that the sort of thing that's going to happen, or is that something that we're keeping an eye on?
No, that only happens to the player who only runs LFR once ever. That's who gets that.
That's me.
No. So yes, this is a great question, great point. I think, we've heard a lot of feedback on Titanforging, on the variants, and oh my god, this is a horrible injustice. Look at this person who has a plus 45 eye level Titan Forged item. This is better than what I have as a Mythic Raider. And it's not fair that more harder content's not being properly rewarded, etc., etc. I think one of our core responses to that throughout has always been that it all averages out in the long run. You know, the LFR Raider who has a 975 helm, well, they probably have LFR gear in their other slots. Their average character power isn't meaningfully improved. Slightly improved. It's an awesome excitement for that player, but at the end of the day, people doing the hardest content are the ones who have the best gear. Weapons definitely threaten to disrupt that a bit, because yes, not all slots are equal. If you got a massively Titan Forged two-handed axe, that could actually, you know, suddenly vault you ahead of, like, literally a tier forward in some ways in terms of performance. That's probably a bit too much. So our current thinking here, this isn't 100% final, current thinking is to not let weapons Titan Forge, to let them Warforge, so maybe +5, +10, but not beyond that at all.
That makes sense.
That also maybe helps preserve some clear tier distinctions in terms of what weapons come from, what difficulty of content.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder in general, plans for Warforging in Battle for Azeroth, we're planning on carrying forward the system, but pulling back on it in a couple of places. The Azerite armor slots will not be able to Warforge or Titan Forge at all, because those items are complex enough already without adding the extra decision-making factor of, wait, but this has slightly worse traits, but it's +5 Warforged.
Oh
what do
my
we want to
god, I'm so happy
worry
about
about
that.
it. We want
Don't
just
worry
know,
about
just
it.
know. Want those to be clear upgrades
Thank
or side
God.
grades, and not in that middle ground space. We also feel like Warforging and Titan Forging in particular is probably just a bit too common in Legion. I think that it actually undermines a lot of the feeling of continued reward when you've seen enough.
Get rid of the legendary system, but make Warforging rarer.
For example,
that's fine.
Yeah.
You're progressing on.
Please get rid of the legendary.
You
I actually like the
legendary.
I don't.
Actually, you have all this Titan Forge gear.
I actually like the legendary system.
They have ruined not one,
They're an
not two,
interesting
not
idea.
three, but every instance of world PvP I have had in Legion.
Because you happen to have the wrong legendary, and they have them.
Because I don't world quest, so I don't get legendary.
So it's not going away,
Oh, wow.
but we are pulling back from it, hopefully trying to find a middle ground that
Should be able to get them out of
keeps the elements
PvP
that
chests.
guide us
Not a once.
limiting
Wow.
some of the downsides.
At least not
that
for me.
others have very rightly pointed out over the past couple of years.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of like it is.
It makes a lot
really
of
fun when you get a Titan
Yeah.
Forged item.
Drinking
It's just
game.
less fun when
Get it
that
together,
turns into
lore.
a bug. This one didn't.
Yeah, totally, exactly. As soon as you're in
Makes
a
sense.
place where if it doesn't Titan Forge, it's not going to be worth using.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
when you're, it's reliable enough that you feel like you should go farm something that was a year-old content because it's realistic that you could get a good Titan Forge on it.
Yeah.
And thus it becomes an obligation. That's also not great.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we had. So thank you very much, Ian, for being here and answering these questions.
Yeah, my pleasure.
As always, it's been an absolute blast. Battle for Azeroth pre-purchase is now live, so definitely go and check that
Woo.
out. Get access to unlocking.
I
the allied
still don't
races.
have any characters
Really
on my account.
there,
Blizzard!
get your hands on for those new races.
Yeah, good luck
If
unlocking
you've
those
already met a
new
lot of
ones.
the requirements, which I imagine a lot of people who are watching this probably already.
Gotta unlock all your old characters
so
now
definitely go
too.
Check that out.
Yeah.
Exciting new
Thanks for
features.
being here. Thanks for all these questions that came in, and we will see you guys next time.
Sounds
Okay.
good. I'm going to go level my allied race.
Nice.
No, you're not. Okay.
Alright.
So there's actually some things that I thought they were going to touch on that we don't actually seem to have answered because,
What were you thinking?
well, there was a couple things I'll show you in a second. But what do you guys think of? Okay, my thing is we have a new drinking game to play whenever we do these Q&As where we will take a shot every time Papa Hazi has to repeat himself
Right.
about something we already know. Every time Lore memes badly or says makes sense.
Mm-hmm. See,
Yeah, we'll have a list
Papa
before
Hazi.
the next one.
I love that, Papa Hazi. Now, what did you guys? Did you guys have whatever question you had? Did it get answered by this stream?
No.
no.
No, that's.
But I knew
No.
mine wouldn't, so that's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that
I
there
mean,
were.
mine's not really fundamental importance to the game, but
Dope. Oh, hey, look, there's a new wallpaper.
Yeah, they put out those
Hey.
really sexy
They got Zappy
wallpapers.
Boy in there. Of
They
They made
course.
the Tauren too short.
Oh, look, it's
They did. Why?
it's low
It's a
key.
dick.
It's low key Bibby right here.
Oh snap!
That's Oh, look at that. I'm about to use that. And then they have one here.
Gross.
Ew.
Fewer
Actually,
main
that dwarf's
characters.
looking good though.
That's
Yeah,
the-
he's the only one.
that is the same dwarf from the original cinematic, I swear.
Damn right.
Oh, it might be.
He's still
Oh.
killing.
Box art. Who was it who said the
That was
box
me.
art? Yeah, Qualia, look at you. You get to be right. Look at that.
Oh wow.
That looks
That's-
dope.
That's what I'm saying. It's a callback to the original Warcraft art
Yeah,
boxes.
they finally don't have that dumb metal circle around it.
Right.
Awesome.
Now let's
I'm
see.
excited.
Declare your allegiance. Digital Deluxe
Digital
Edition. Okay, so here's a list of questions that they all got to. And look how big the PvP section is. But there's
Jesus.
something else here. 4 extra character slots, race unlocks 100, 110 to unlock the Nightborn, etc. The Void Elf racial is not a copy of Mage Blink. And I thought that was a good point of his, by the way. The fact that those abilities are referred to as blinks is kind of telling. So we'll work on unlocking other allied races such as Draenor. I'm triggered. Draenor.
Told you.
Triggered. Oh my god.
Pop a blood vessel.
Yeah, I might.
Yeah,
God.
take
Oh.
a giant one.
Oh, wait a minute. There's a different section. Hold on. These aren't covered in the Q&A. Okay. Oh, it's adventure. Where did this come from then? I don't know, but I'm gonna go ahead and expound over this. It's a scaling interview with Shawnee Edwards, the art producer, and Paul Kubit, from a senior game designer, talking about allied races and level scaling. So, allied races. If you pre-purchase Battle for Azeroth, you'll be able to begin your journey to recruit the Draenei, Tauren, Elves, and Nightborn. Details and timing of the release of the allied races are just being figured out. The team listed a lot of player feedback to decide what allied races to do. Oh, really? Let's take a look and see. Players really wanted to be able to play as a Nightborn.
How
No
many
shit.
how many people were begging for the Void Elves?
All of the races are tied to the Legion story. I'm telling you, probably not a soul, because there was no such thing beforehand.
Void Elves are just so clearly the answer to people wanting High Elves and Blizzard not wanting to give us High Elves.
They're clearly the answer of, well, shit, we need to come up with something else. I'm telling you.
We listened to the player feedback, how much they wanted the High Elves, and we just said, no, thanks for...
Oh my
Though,
god.
Not gonna lie, I'm one of those people who wanted Light Force.
The team wanted the allied races to feel different and unique compared to the races they are based off of, which is why the class restrictions for the allied races are the way they are. The heritage armor system also makes them unique. The team put a lot of time into making them unique. They aren't just material specific, and you could wear Light Forge plate looking set on a mage. Nice. The heritage armor for the old races is something the team has talked about and is thinking about, but they haven't anything to announce yet. Kind of the Argent tournament was kind of that. Kind of. Heritage armor for the... There aren't any plans to add any more classes to the allied races, but they will keep an eye on player feedback. There's a lot of feedback that a specific race and class combination was missed and makes sense, and then maybe they could add it. So, Troll Paladins rip, basically. Or do we even know what the Zandalari are getting now? I think we do. The team is happy with how unlocking more classes over time for the existing races has worked out. As the game has grown, restrictions that were in place in the past didn't make as much sense anymore, like Blood Oath Warriors. But they're missing out on the real reason why there were restrictions before Kata. It was a technical thing. There was only a certain number of class slots that they could give to the races. And that's why for Paladins it came down to, do we give them Warrior or do we give them Rogue, I think. It's not just a lore thing. It's also a technical thing, and people should remember that.
Right.
Let's see. The team wanted allied races to feel prestigious. Throughout Legion, players experienced storyline for allied races and earned their trust, except for the Void Elves, who weren't around. You just helped the Queen Void Elf.
And they joined the faction by just being distrusted by the others.
Yeah, it's a real prestigious
the opposite.
storyline. Yeah. With Battle for Azeroth, there is a conflict between the Horde and the Alliance. Each faction needs to find and recruit allies, so the recruiting process could be built into the gameplay of unlocking these races. I'm glad they made an experience and something to do. The allied race will be using the dance of their race, their base race. There may be some dance updates in the future. Oh, Qualia, you were the one who asked about
There
the
we
dance
go.
studio earlier.
There we go.
Before the recording, there it is. There's a maybe. There was a giant list of races that were considered for allied races. These 4 tied into the Legion story well, which is why they were selected. Pretty much anything with the 2 legs was considered. Oh, Dope. We're gonna get into
No Centaur then.
we're gonna get into, you know what, this whole question dealing with them throughout Legion. We're actually gonna talk about the three races that you actually deal with through Legion when we do the follow up to the Void Elf podcast by talking about the Draenei, the Lightforce Draenei, the Tauren, High Mountain Tauren, and the Nightborn. And we're gonna go in order from what point in Legion we experienced them. High Mountain are the ones you leveled up with. Nightborn were the ones you did at max level, and Lightforge were post content. But at no point do we interact with the Void Elves. So it just goes into another reason why I don't like them, but this isn't about them.
Well, Blizzard's in just a rough spot for that. Like, they're already stretching to add
They are the
Dark
redheaded
Iron with
stepchild.
absolutely no content.
Yeah, the redheaded stepchild of the allied races is for sure the Void Elves because they don't really tie into a lot
Or
of
the
the
Dark
rationale.
Iron, because they got the literal red hair.
You're gonna make every PvE player who wants to be an edgy elf so mad.
Oh my god. I know.
I've seen a surprising.
I'm already an edgy
despite
elf, alright?
The backlash. I've seen a surprising amount of people who are actually totally unabashedly excited for Void Elves. Like,
I know.
it really
yeah.
doesn't do anything for me, but I've seen a lot of people who actually are pumped for them.
I mean, I can understand it to a point, right? Like, they look gorgeous.
They do.
They do.
Aesthetically,
Nice.
they do look great.
Their crest and their racial armor looks great. Their mount can suck a knob.
And I think we've been over those. Like, I don't have a problem with them existing. I have a problem with how they exist.
Same here.
Right.
Same here. And the rationale of explaining them. The
Right.
team.
So I'm
Yeah.
holding out hope because when I initially found Warcraft, I went in knowing nothing and loved it. I know
Yeah.
nothing about Void Elves. Maybe Blizzard will make me love them.
Maybe
they'll be great, Dayon.
Maybe they'll no. I don't know. Maybe the team
I guess
considered the team considered starting races at level 1, but ended up settling on 20. It's a natural starting point as the starting zones are complete by then, and it didn't feel natural for an allied race who's already gone through the introduction to go through a human starting zone in Elwyn. That's fair.
I really like that. I
Alright.
hate starting a new character just because
Yeah.
I only have one ability.
Allied races are going to be played by players that are already familiar with WoW, so the new player starting experience where you slowly unlock the skills is not necessary. Every sub-team on the art team worked on the allied races. Totems, armor, loading screen, character models, and other things needed to be worked on too. Thousands of hours went into creating the allied races, the least of which went towards the Void Elves, I'm sure, and the entire team had to sit down and decide what color the Void Elves should be. What does it mean to be Void? I'm sure this was so difficult to answer. The Void Heart armor was purple for how long?
I think the Void Elves' hair would have taken a long time to get right.
Yeah. Initially,
Even if it didn't take that long to model and animate itself, just getting through the design phases would be a bitch.
Initially, the team had colors like pink and purple involved in the Void. The effect, dungeon prop, character, and other teams all sat down together to differentiate what it means to be Void and just what it means to be Shadow. That's fair. There's a difference between Void and Shadow, I'm sure. The pink involved in the Void Elves is just hints of pink outside of the blackness of their heritage armor. The Seething Shore loading screen was added to the build before it was finished. It's still a work in progress, and it wasn't meant to be seen yet. Oh, hey. There are no plans to give the allied races customizations of their base. Oh, well, that was my question answered. Okay. No plans for allied race customization to go to the base race. I'm a little sad. The team...
To be expected.
The team iterated on level scaling. The team iterated on a lot of zone level scaling ranges. The initial version just bumped up and down the maximum and minimum for each level by about 5 or 10. The team also wanted to make sure that players were currently leveling in a zone to suddenly be too high or high level to quest in that zone. And the team wanted to make sure that you had some zones that you could look forward to, so zones didn't scale for all levels. You shouldn't be able to head to Iceground and kill things at level 1, as that was a scary zone you worked towards. And there are zones that you could travel past, and it would be annoying to be chased by level 110 werewolves when you came back to Elwyn Forest. And I don't know why I said werewolves.
There are no werewolves in there.
There are a few, Worgen, basically. It made sense for raids and heroic dungeons to not scale and stay at a fixed level. There are some few zones that don't have scaling applied, like the Cataclysm PvP areas. Both leveling through the dungeons and quests should be valid ways to level a character. Looking at you, Wheegil. PvP let you.
I mean, I always do dungeons to level. It's just when I get to endgame and people actually give a damn.
The leveling factory.
Yeah.
Although I think they're making it less so now.
The game itself isn't better off if either one is obviously the right choice, so the team will continue to look at numbers and iterate as they see fit. For players that have already played through the game and want to level an ult, it's a good method of reasoning to make leveling faster for that type of character. ? That is something the team has talked about, but no plans to announce. Has nothing to announce at this point. The team hasn't talked a lot about allowing players to blacklist a dungeon when queuing for a random dungeon. Fair. When you queue at level 55 for a random dungeon, you have a pool of maybe 30 dungeons that you're eligible for at that point. The system attempts to put you in a dungeon that is close to the normal level band that you are in. You can get sent to dead mines or wailing caverns, and will have to be if you're a group with someone that is level 15. Scaling required a lot of data work. And when looking at normal and heroic Burning Crusade bosses on a level 110 character, players noticed that normal bosses had more health than heroic. This happened because heroic Burning Crusade bosses are level 70, but normal bosses scale to 83 when you were level 110. This is why normal bosses ended up having a lot more health than heroic bosses. An additional bug made the normal bosses even more health than you're intended at level 110. This bug didn't affect any players that were leveling, as everything else was scaled properly. And miscellaneous, here it is, here's what I was looking for. Last but not least, Worgen and Goblin model updates are still planned for sometime during the Battle for Azeroth expansion.
Sometime.
Yeah, what?
I've heard sometime before.
Is this going to come out when I reach that burnout point of Battle for Azeroth and I don't want to touch WoW anymore?
I don't know.
If so, I just might firebomb Blizzard off.
Like, we're going to get back those Goblin players after they are just about to unsubscribe.
Oh, hey, here's a better look at that horse, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Let me see this thing.
It's a good looking horse, man.
Yeah, I saw some people pointing out earlier that it doesn't have teeth.
Right.
It doesn't have teeth? What?
Yeah, like I saw somebody post a screenshot earlier where they took a shot of it when its mouth was open during one of the animations, and apparently there's no teeth modeled in the mouth.
Oh my god, let's see.
You don't look at free horses in the teeth or something.
Yeah, you're not supposed to notice those teeth anyway.
Although it's not a free horse, it's a pre-order horse. So yeah, you're supposed to look it in the mouth, I think, for that.
I don't even think its mouth opens. I can't tell.
It just made me think about it, though. It's sitting here talking about teeth and goblin models.
Oh my god.
The dope-ass looking raptor, though. And let's see. Tracer's emotes. Oh, Battle for Azeroth has a sexy new. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Anyway.
Wait, what is that?
That's a launcher as a new background for the launcher. Has things related to battle.
Hell yeah.
Actually, let's see if that update is live. No, I'm not
that's not a new launcher.
I'm not opening my launcher.
No, so I do like the Overwatch rewards. I just hate Tracer.
Yeah, I don't play Tracer either. So.
I still, even after the Blizzard World update, hate seeing content from other Blizzard games in Overwatch.
I don't mind it.
Anyway. Grinds my gears.
Okay, I would visit Blizzard World.
Malore! McCannon!
Oh.
I would go to the real life Blizzard World.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, same.
Go on that Dead Mines cart ride or whatever. And
oh no, my Boncast image is gone. That's a shame.
Go to the sad beer garden where everyone who PvPs hangs out.
Mm-hmm. Hearthstone Tavern.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have to change my. I have to change where I store that file because my nice, delicious splash page is not coming up like it's supposed to. But anyway,
seems like a good place to break. I don't know how long if we're going to go into that next topic or if we'll save that for another podcast.
We're going to save it later. I did want to do a deep dive into all the data mine stuff, but I don't have any of that stuff up right now, so we'd have to do a lot of hunting and pecking. That said, I think this is a great place to end it. I'm just looking for that image so we can end it on the image. That's what I want to end it on. Where is it?
You gotta end out aesthetically, man.
There we go.
Find that picture.
There it is, boys.
Hey.
Do you see it?
Hey.
Coming together.
The gang.
Man, we might have to add we'll have to do a Barnabas, and these are on different layers, so I can move them around as how I want to.
Sweet.
Oh yeah.
Qualia just looks like he's completely disinterested in whatever it is Wheegil has to say.
That's just making me more sad that I've been awake for 3 hours now and still can't log into Wheegil.
Well, guys, what did you think of the Q&A? Are you satisfied with what you heard? Are you does it make you any more or less hype for the game? Does lore need? My biggest question is, why is lore even there? It sounds like he just feeds the question to Ion, and Papa Hazi just answers them.
Leave Laura alone.
He's a good.
He's just a
I
proctor to kind of move things along. But I mean, that's
Yeah, that's
partially his job.
It's
It's
his
definitely more
job,
interesting
you're right.
having two people to bounce stuff off of back and forth than just Ian
Or
just taking the questions by himself.
or a group
Plus,
of 4
you can't-
friends.
Those dank memes, though,
Dank memes, yeah. Look, guys,
The dankest.
reread this. Hey, I posted this podcast up on the subreddit. Well, I didn't post the podcast itself, but maybe I will. Maybe they'll see this. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I
Maybe.
don't think the Q&A are tailored to people like me though, because I'm the
No.
kind of guy who will just go through every data mine and learn everything I can.
Oh,
True.
then
I
we are
don't
gonna.
avoid spoilers for the game at all.
Yeah, they
Did we-
just spewed a bunch of stuff that I already knew. And it's
Oh,
just
that we are
like-
gonna have a balling. We're gonna have a ball of a time when we go into that together. But the next episode, I think we're gonna talk about. This is something that you touched on earlier, Wheegil, and I think it was you. The thing I told you to hold on to. The next episode that I want to do is sort of an analysis of a player's own identity of their character and things that Blizzard does to allow you to reinforce what your idea of your character is versus what they tell you your character is. So is Wheegil the goblin guy who is the chief engineer of the forward line, or is he the leader of the unseen path?
Not at all the leader of the unseen path. Not at all the chief.
Oh, I'm
engineer of
also
the forward line.
Not anymore, but still, at
I'm
one
also
point.
the warlord of Draenor. If that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward
I'm-
to talking about the order halls, the garrison, what we did to separate ourselves or incorporate these things. So I think that'll be a very interesting podcast. But for now, I think it's a good time to break. That was an interesting Q&A. I think next time what we'll do is we're just gonna have, I don't know. I got some ideas about how we're gonna reduce the amount of pause. And you know what? It's fine. We're only at about the 2-hour mark. We're fine. This was good. So,
Yeah.
any final thoughts from anybody else?
Enjoy the game, Blizzard. Please let me log in.
Well, this has been the second edition of the podcast. Thank you everyone who listened. And if you guys have any platforms you guys would like people to follow you on, any art websites, any streaming things that you do you'd like to sort of plug in, because here's your moment for it. I'm Matt, but I do also go by Dayon. But you can find me on Twitch. You can find me on WordPress. You can find me on a whole host of things. Instead of going through them one by one, I'm going to drop them into the description below. I'd love to get some eyeballs on some of the things I'm working on. How about you, Qualia? Got a platform you'd like to share?
Yeah, you can follow me at Zombie Qualia on Twitter and Tumblr.
Ballin'. And what about you, Wheegil? Where can we find you, if anywhere at all?
I don't have any social media. If you see a little goblin on a rocket named Wheegil on Wormrest, shoot me a whisper. If not, go look at Dayon and Qualia's art.
Aw, yeah, boy. And our guest, Barnabas. I'm sure we'll see you at least at one point. If you want to come on again, we'd love to have you. Is there any place we can find you that you'd like to share?
Not really social media wise, I guess, but I welcome anybody who's interested in getting involved in the Forsaken RP community on Wormrest to hop on the Undercity United Discord. It's kind of just a meeting place for all the different guilds, recruiting, event planning, stuff like that. It's really great.
Dope. Yeah, we're eventually going to do a race retrospective. I hope that we can get you back in for when we talk about Forsaken and Worgen. That'll be a fun one.
Ooh.
Race
thing.
introspective.
Yeah, boy. Anyway, boys, that's all our time. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope you all have a great rest of your night. We love you. Go fuck
Bye.
yourselves. Good night.
Bye.